Our first live episode of the Salvaggio and Cratty Sports podcast. Here for you on a Wednesday night as usual, 7:36 p.m. Plenty to talk about today. Episode 81, of course. The most notable name being Randy Moss. Plenty of Patriots history, some good, some, a little bad, not going to lie. You also have Aaron Hernandez, Tim Wright, the touchdown machine, and those two tight end sets with Gronk. Jonnu Smith currently for the Bruins. We got Anton Bleed, Miroslav Shatan, Phil Kessel to round out the Bruins, and then Kyle Hart for the Red Sox, and no Celtics. I think the only other player to wear 81 for the Red Sox was a guy in like the 30s. I forget his name. So Kyle Hart's the first
No
guy in
idea.
like 80 something years to wear 81. But hey, whatever. I guess 81 is just not a very common baseball number. That's okay. We're here another Wednesday night. Very exciting to be live for the first time on
It's a little
Restream
different.
and other platforms, YouTube and Twitch. Um, very exciting. Another step. I remember talking with Ian Glendon from Full Press about this, and I was like, we don't want to be stale. We want to try new things, and hopefully things go well. And this is another step. We're excited about it. We see our number one fan, Matt Doran, in the chat saying underway, let's go, commenting
Love to
from
see it.
YouTube. So we got some people on the YouTube right now. I'm sure more viewers will funnel in. But yeah, the biggest thing coming up in the coming days is definitely the Super Bowl 56, Bengals and Rams. Last week we did not get to our predictions fully because there's an extra week now in between the end or the championship games and the Super Bowl, unlike the past. So now we have a week to take off for a little bit for predictions and stuff, and now we're here for the real deal. So I've talked enough. Ryan, how you doing?
Doing well. Not gonna lie, it's a little strange having the video up here going live. I feel like we're kind of back at our Merrimack days from just the radio show being live. Of course, we didn't have any video of that for anyone to see our phenomenal mugs here. So great to have that opportunity to do this. Um, Ready to go. Like I said, hopefully, if people have followed us from our Merrimack days, we won't have any technical difficulties like that. Love to happen when we were there. But it's cool. It's definitely different, and for me at least, it might take a couple minutes to get used to. But I'm ready to go.
Yeah, we're ready to go. Just some notes before we get to the Super Bowl. Actually, for Patriots matters, we have the news of Joe Judge returning as an offensive assistant. Talked about it a couple weeks ago. Makes a lot of sense whether you like Joe Judge or not. This is kind of a move I think a lot of people saw as a possibility. Like I said, we talked about it 2 weeks ago. And also Gerard Mayo is staying, a guy that was popular in the coaching market for other teams, but now all those voids are filled with the Saints making a new hire, promoting Dennis Allen, Lovie Smith, head coach of the Texans now. But it's good to have Gerard Mayo staying. You lose Ziegler, you lose McDaniels, but you keep Josh McDaniels. Get a familiar face, albeit in a different role, and Joe Judge back. Maybe that could work out. How are we feeling about those?
Uh, I'm not a huge fan of the Joe Judge move. I mean, with you, it's a familiar face, so it's not, the worst thing in the planet. I'm glad Gerard Mayo's staying. I think that's smart because, I mean, I think he's. Some people say it was Steve Belichick. Some people say it's him. I kind of feel like he is gonna turn into the de facto defensive coordinator. That's the big thing for me, though. Kind of the one takeaway I have from this is, the Patriots, they hired Joe Judge as, what was it, an offensive specialist or an assistant or something like that.
Assistant.
Not technically an assistant, not technically a coordinator. That to me has me a little weary. I mean, I would like to maybe have guys have actual titles. Like obviously Josh McDaniels, we knew was the de facto offensive coordinator. To me, not having an actual OC is not really the best thing for Mac Jones, at least in my opinion. I don't know if you feel the same way, if maybe I'm overblowing this a little bit, but I don't know. I would just like some stability. I think you saw it last season when you had kind of was Gerard Mayo the defensive coordinator, was Steve Belichick the defensive coordinator, was Bill Belichick just calling the defensive plays from behind the scenes, and Mayo and Belichick were just kind of names there. Like we saw how well that worked out in the end. Like I said, maybe Joe Judge will kind of take the offensive coordinator name and that title as the season goes on. But right now, I'm not the most confident of it. Like I said, for Mac Jones, I'm already a little weary having two offensive coordinators in 2 years, and now that maybe Joe Judge isn't just going to be the guy calling the shots. Maybe you'll have other names in there as well from within the staff. That just doesn't sit well with me either.
Yeah, the good thing I think is I don't think right now they have any plans to like drastically change the offense.
Mhm.
Even though they're gonna have to make some changes, of course, with McDaniel's being in that position for so long, making the adjustment. But I don't know. It's just all about Mac Jones. It's just figuring out what he's comfortable with. You know, if there are changes he's comfortable with, or he wants to keep it pretty much the same. They could go either way, but you know, he's obviously your biggest priority as the future number one quarterback, current number one quarterback as well. So some Patriots news, even though they're in the off season, um, but there's still a long off season ahead. We'll see what happens in the coming months leading up to the draft. But the biggest thing in football, as we put out earlier, is definitely Super Bowl 56 between the Rams and the Bengals. We talked
Yeah, it
about
should be.
this main point last week. It's like the most likable QB matchup ever.
Yeah, I can't find a reason. I mean, I know some people over the last couple weeks have kind of talked about Joe Burrow's cockiness, and maybe that's something that people might not like about him. I don't have a problem with that. I think it's worked for him, clearly to get him where they are, and then Matt Stafford obviously having to spend the first, what was it, 8 or 9 years, or however many years he's been in the league in Detroit, having to struggle through that team with that team. Now he finally gets a chance in the Super Bowl. I personally like Sean McVay. I know there's some people, don't really aren't too fond of him. There's some people that are, of course, saying that the Rams kind of bought their way to the Super Bowl, which, I mean, you could obviously make that case. But yeah, I mean, just from a quarterback standpoint, I like Stafford. I'm big on Joe Burrow now. Obviously, Jamar Chase. I know people have talked about just the quarterbacks in general, but I think there's a lot of likable guys on both teams.
Yeah, definitely, and it's a huge Super Bowl for star names as well, exciting, explosive players. So that's always exciting. When obviously you're talking about the Super Bowl. Betting numbers, we got an over under of 48.5. The spread is -4.5 for the Rams. And the predictor, not sure where the source is from, but we got it here in the outline.
ESPN.
Yeah, I figured it was ESPN with the link
Yep.
above. Is 66.3% Rams. Um, but yeah, I mean, we can dive into some of like the breakdowns of the teams like I do typically with the Patriots. Cam Akers and Sony Michelle in the running game. Not guys that are going to blow you away. You know, Cam Akers has had success against the Patriots, ironically enough, but
Mhm.
they're not playing the Patriots. Matthew Stafford, of course, at QB, had a very good year. First year as a Ram, makes the playoffs, makes it to the Super Bowl. Very impressive. Um, we'll see if Sony Michelle has any role in the running game here. It's been kind of uncertain for him in the postseason so far. Cam Akers, we know what he can do. Not a proven commodity 100% yet, but a solid running back. But where they really shine is, of course, with the best receiver in football this year, Cooper Cup. The stage is set for a monster game for him. He's had a monster season, arguably the best in the history of football. Um, so yeah, the stage is set for Cooper Cup 100%. Odell Beckham Jr. This is something he's been looking to do for a while, play in the Super Bowl, play for a championship, and to live up to the billing. You know, being that big trade acquisition, he's going to want to show out here. So huge playmakers on that side. Tyler Higbee's a solid tight end. Van Jefferson is a solid depth receiver as well, kind of the number three. No Robert Woods, of course. He's been out for a while. He will be out, of course, the rest of the season. But they've got contributions where they've needed enough to get here. So it's not like it's the end of the world losing Robert Woods, but a guy I bet they would like to have. Very good offense, one of the best in the league. And people still talk about their defense as the main thing more often than not because their defense is very, very good. Jalen Ramsey is phenomenal, arguably the best corner in football. Darius Williams, pending free agent, whether he stays there or not, is going to cash in. Could see both Jalen Ramsey and Darius Williams kind of blanketing Jamar Chase. I think in this game, I think that's definitely possible. Um, Troy Reader at linebacker is very good. Von Miller, the big trade acquisition. They got Eric Weddle back out of retirement for 2 years. Nick Scott, solid player. Aaron Donald, you could make the case as the best defensive player in the league. Um, pretty good group on defense. Leonard Floyd is still pretty solid. They got a good offensive line with one of them being the oldest offensive lineman in the league, Andrew Whitworth. Would be pretty cool to see him win a Super Bowl at age 40. Not gonna lie, but very good team. Very, very good team. Anything additional you want to add on the Ram side of things to look out for?
No, just a couple of things that, I mean, it kind of tease into the Bengals stuff of it too. Is personally, I think you mentioned Cooper Cup obviously having a phenomenal season. I and like I said, this goes for both teams. I think you're not going to see a ton from Cup. I think you're not going to see a ton from Jamar Chase. I feel like it's going to have to be those other guys from both teams. You mentioned it with Odell Beckham Jr. I mean, this is a stage set for him. You said he's a superstar player, as much as it pains me to say, because you know how I feel about Odell Beckham Jr. But yeah, this is a game I think he's probably going to ball out in. He's probably going to have to, like I said, if the Bengals can somehow figure out a way to shut Cooper Cup down. Like I said, same thing on Cincinnati's side. I think you're going to see more of T. Higgins and more of Tyler Boyd than you are Jamar Chase, because I think you mentioned, Jalen Ramsey is probably going to blanket him. The big thing for me, too, is obviously Cam Akers is a little banged up. We've seen it firsthand. Sony Michel, the success he's had in the postseason with the Patriots, kind of, I don't want to say single-handedly helping them win a Super Bowl, but kind of his coming out party. What a lot of people thought Sony Michel was going to be a decent running back. It's because of, the playoff performance he had a couple years ago. I wonder if that kind of success he had is maybe something the Rams lean more towards than maybe Akers, like I said, even with the injury too. And then it's all on Matt Stafford too. I mean, we've seen Stafford step up in games before. You saw him almost throw the game away 2 weeks ago. If I can't remember who the defensive back was for the 49ers that had the ball right in his hands and dropped it. So that's kind of the big thing for me too, is, does the Detroit side of Matt Stafford come back out in this game, or does he kind of put that behind him and play like he's played pretty much throughout this playoff and been pretty solid?
Yeah, I think the Detroit Matt Stafford is kind of gone.
Mm-hmm.
You never know. He's also never been in a Super Bowl, so you can't say for sure based off of reputation. But this is a guy that's absolutely going to be motivated. He's got the weapons around him. The formula is there. On the other side of the ball, of course, Joe Burrow. Right now, the face of football, I'd say undoubtedly.
I think you could make that argument, absolutely.
He's the face of football. The Bengals are America's team. He's a rock star. He's got the swagger. He's got the confidence. But they got the confident, not cocky mindset. They want to make that clear. Uh, Very well rounded offense. Joe Mixon, one of the better running backs in the league. He'll get it done for you in the backfield. Hasn't had like a crazy explosive postseason, but he's done
Yeah,
enough.
you're still kind of waiting on him, I feel like.
Yeah, but he's solid. He's a guy you have to look out for. Jamar Chase, another one of the best receivers in the league this year. Phenomenal rookie season, one of the better rookie seasons of all time. Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins. I think T. Higgins could be in line for a huge game with guys like Darius Williams and Jalen Ramsey blanketing Jamar Chase, maybe going a double coverage route at times like the Chiefs did with Jamar Chase. Of course, the Bengals ended up winning, so it didn't hurt them too much. But Jamar Chase was just limited to 8 yards in the first half. So I think the Rams would love to do something similar to that. But of course, have it bleed into the second half and try and neutralize Jamar Chase. Easier said than done. We'll see if it happens. CJ Uzoma, last I saw, might play. Not a guy that's like guaranteed to have a big game every game, but a guy that can show up. He can be reliable. He's just another option. For Joe Burrow, speaking of the tight end position, interesting to see Rob Gronkowski talking about playing for Joe Burrow.
Yeah, that was a little strange how he
That would
goes
be
from not
something.
wanting to play with anyone other than Brady, but now all of a sudden wants to kind of team up with Joe Burrow. You mentioned a couple, I think it might have been last week when we talked about it, or a couple weeks ago. You said maybe Buffalo, which would be kind of a no-brainer. But yeah, like I said, a little interesting that now all of a sudden seems like out of nowhere. I don't know if the Super Bowl appearance maybe has something to do with that. If Gronk thinks maybe Cincinnati can get him one more before he retires, but yeah, definitely something to keep an eye on. I mean, hell, you said it, the Burrow's slowly becoming the face of the NFL right now. I think Patrick Mahomes, as much as we crapped on him last week, still might have something to say about that. But yeah, definitely keep an eye on where Gronk might end up if he decides to, want to hang him up or if he wants to keep going.
Yeah, I mean, with those comments, you could say the Bills, the Bucks, and the Bengals, all teams that start with B. Maybe that's a trend for Gronk.
That,
Um,
yeah, the way
how the
his
top
mind
three
works,
fits
I
for him.
mean,
Yeah, it could
he is a
be a
strange
thing.
one. Yep.
But yeah, I mean, I'd watch out for T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd in this game. Maybe they get freed up a little bit. Maybe they can create some mismatches there. But it's
Uzama's a
it's
big
gonna
one
be
too if he's healthy. I feel like kind of it feeds into the same thing like I was talking about earlier. So they shut down Chase. I mean, you're going to have a guy like him step up, and he's been solid second half of the season into the playoffs. I mean, it was a big loss. At least I thought it was going to be in the Kansas City game. They obviously seemed to rally around it. Um, but yeah, if he can go, that I think helps Joe Burrow out a lot because I mean, like I said, it's going to be a lot of Ramsey. I feel like on Chase throughout the game, and that's obviously a tough matchup for him. As great as a receiver as Chase has been all season, like you could very well see him negated with Jalen Ramsey out there.
yeah, it's gonna be really a really interesting breakdown on defense, especially for the Rams to watch. Of course, with the Bengals now, as we segue into their defense, as Matt Doran, our number one fan, our guy, he's always here for us, says, I think the Bengals defense may hold them back based on the AFC Championship game performance. Your guys' thoughts? That segues us into things really well. And a reminder, with the live format here, you can comment and leave us questions and your thoughts and stuff like that. So if you're watching right now and have some thoughts, get them off your chest in the chat if you want. On defense, Logan Wilson, definitely, the face of that linebacker group, the top dog there. Trey Hendrickson, one of the better defensive players in the league this year, will be in the mix as well. Their two biggest guys on defense up front. Their secondary is kind of, I don't know if I'd say underrated, but they've got some guys that can make plays. I think Mike Hilton's had a really kind of under the radar season. I think
Hmm.
Chidobe Awuzie has been overall solid as a free agent addition. Eli Apple has moments that are good,
Yeah,
but
up and
more
downs for
often
sure.
has questionable moments. Then you
Yeah.
have Jesse Bates the third, arguably one of the better safeties in the league. I'd say he's definitely top five. Um, Definitely the top dog in that secondary. I'd say BJ Hill and DJ Reader will contribute. Sam Hubbard, formerly a Notre Dame lacrosse recruit. He's a big guy off the edge for them, along with Trey Hendrickson. But Urban Meyer, of course, turned him into a football player, I think, as we mentioned last week.
Think so.
Yeah, but honestly, overall, solid defense. Khalid Kareem can make plays every once in a while too. Not a star-studded defense, but one that can make some noise here and there. The biggest thing, talking about defense, that we kind of forgot to mention on the offensive side of the ball, the Bengals let up the third most sacks in the league this year, and the Rams have a very powerful pass rush. Are they going to be able to hold up, or is Joe Burrow just going to get massacred this game? That's going to be the biggest thing, outside of obviously quarterback play. As we're in the Super Bowl, you need your
Hmm.
quarterbacks to show up. Is the offensive line going to be able to hold up? I don't know. It's possible. Another guy I forgot to mention on the defense, Trey Flowers. They claimed off waivers from the Seahawks during the season. Decent defense, but on the other side of the ball, there's some question marks in the offensive line. I think this is definitely a team that's going to be in the market for offensive line help in the offseason. Hopefully, a winning offseason for them. Do you think, it's going to be one of those games where they're all over Joe Burrow, or do you think they're going to be able to hold the line and be up to the task, at least enough to maybe squeak out a win?
I don't. I mean, I like everyone else. I feel like I think the Rams are gonna have a field day. I mean, you mentioned the weapons that are on the side of the ball there. The specific ones, Donald Von Miller's obviously been there, has had success in the Super Bowl, knows what it takes to win. But I mean, on the flip side of that, you saw it in the Tennessee game. He got sacked what 9 times, and I think that's what the pull to Joe Burrow has been, and what's kind of made him, blossom into the superstar that he's been. Is he didn't look phased in that Tennessee game, getting hit that many times. So I feel like you could maybe. I mean, maybe again, the Super Bowl is a hell of a lot different situation scenario than the AFC divisional round, but I don't know. I mean, I think Joe Burrow, he'll take his licks. He'll get right back up in this game. You've seen him do it in the past. Um, it's going to be a struggle for him. That's why I think Joe Mixon's probably going to have a bigger game than he's had in the playoffs. I feel like they're going to, maybe the Rams might try to lean more into it. We have to cover all these weapons on offense, the chases, the boys, like you mentioned. Maybe this is a game you see Joe Mixon used a lot more. I know, the Rams have been really good against the run in the playoffs this year, but maybe, like I said, they game plan a little too much for Burrow's arm, and he ends up, you saw it in the Kansas City game. Maybe he beats him with their legs. Maybe you see a little bit more mix, and I think that's where they're going to go. But it's definitely going to be a struggle for him. I think. I don't think they're going to. Burrow's definitely not going to get out of this game unscathed. He's going to take his bumps and bruises, and again, it's going to come down to can he get back up and continue the dominance kind of that he's had this throughout these whole playoffs.
Yeah.
The Bengals defense won though. I didn't really get to Matt's question. I didn't really answer that at all. Like you mentioned, I think they've been more really underrated this playoffs. But I don't know. I think it's obvious to say it all comes down to shutting down Cooper Kupp. You really haven't seen a team do that yet. If they can do that, I know, like I said, I think Odell's going to have a big game, but I think that's kind of where they're going to have to start. If you got to let one of these two guys beat you, you can't have both of them. If you have a game where Cooper Kupp and Odell are both running free, then this is going to be a blowout game. Not going to spoil the scores, but you and I both think this is going to be a close game. So I think you and I both kind of agree that we think they'll have a decent chance to shut the Rams offense down. But like I said, it's a tall task when you mentioned it going up against the arguably best receiver in football this year.
Yeah, I think if you're the Bengals, you want to shut down the Rams offense, but you just got to do your best to neutralize them. It's not the best answer,
Exactly.
but that's really all you can do because shutting down that offense is going to be a really really tough task. Um,
Hmm.
it's not like the Rams have gone out and dominated every team on offense all game. They've lost some tough games in the regular season, but they are able to be neutralized. Cooper Cup is the guy that pretty much hasn't been able to be neutralized. I think his lowest receiving yards total this year was 63 yards. Um, it's
Still pretty good.
preposterous. Had him on my fantasy team, won the league, no big deal. You just gotta hope to contain him. That's really it. There's not
Hmm.
a de facto guy. They have a good defense overall, but not a team with like a shutdown number one corner that can you can count on to potentially shut down Cooper Cup. You just have some guys you can throw at him and hope to neutralize him. Hope to keep those big games to a minimum or just completely eliminate them from the game. So yeah, it's kind of like there's no like perfect way to answer that question, but I think you just got to hope to neutralize the Rams offense and especially Cooper Cup and hope if you do neutralize Cooper Cup like Ryan talked about that OBJ does not just run free because he's showing
Exactly.
that this is a great fit for him. He's motivated. He's showing, what he's capable of looking like his old self and man, it just really makes you think of how special of a Super Bowl this is going to be in terms of the weapons. I mean, the Bengals built something really good, really fast on offense. And now they just got to build up that line and the defense a little bit, being the offensive line, of course. And then the Rams, they hate draft picks. They love loading up on talent, um, and it's worked. I mean, you can't really fault
Yeah,
them.
he could. Yep.
There have been question marks throughout the season. Is it going to be work? Is it going to be enough? Is it going to be enough to beat the Bucks? Is it going to be enough to beat the Packers? It was mission accomplished, and now the next step is to win the Super Bowl and get some vengeance for losing to the Patriots and only scoring 3 points
Hmm.
not too long ago, our junior year at Merrimack. Um, Injury reports for both teams. Let's start with the Rams. As I scroll back up here, we got Joe Note. No, I don't know if it's Nota Boom or Note Boom. I never know with this guy. Um,
No idea.
his
You're asking the
his
wrong guy when it comes to pronouncing names.
yeah, you are not the right guy.
Nope, not even close.
He's doubtful with a chest injury. Andrew Whitworth is questionable with a knee injury. Jalen Ramsey questionable with a shoulder. Van Jefferson questionable with a knee. Tyler Higbee questionable with a knee. Cam Akers questionable with the shoulder. Taylor Rapp has a concussion. I don't know if he's even played all playoffs. I know he hasn't been in the mix recently. They'd love to have him. He's a good young safety. I believe he's a second round pick 2 or 3 years ago. And Christian Rosaboom with an elbow injury is questionable. For the Bengals, CJ Uzama and that knee, he's questionable still. Trey Hendrickson is dealing with an illness. Josh Tupou is dealing with a knee injury, also questionable. Stanley Morgan, wide receiver, he is questionable with a hamstring. Jackson Carman, one of their offensive linemen, second round pick in this past year's draft, with a back injury is questionable. Wyatt Ray has an ankle injury, no designation listed here. And Cam Sample, defensive end, has a groin injury and he's questionable. Now we get to predictions. What the people I'm sure have been waiting for since last week.
Yeah,
I
you and
gotta be
I.
honest, I don't feel great about my prediction, even though I love the Bengals, but I'm going 30-28 Bengals. I'm going Joe Burrow for MVP. Sleeper T. Higgins, I think it was plus 5,000 for T. Higgins to win MVP. I would hammer those odds if I were a betting man. I just think with Jamar Chase potentially being neutralized, T. Higgins could have a massive game, and it could come down to him or Joe Burrow. Um, More likely, I think in that case they would pick Burrow, but I don't know if you're willing to put a little small wager on T. Higgins. I think it could be worth your while.
Could
I
work
won't.
out for you. Yeah, with those numbers.
Um, but yeah, this has the makings of a classic. I think last year, it was awesome to see the Bucks win, but it was a little underwhelming in terms of excitement, like offensive excitement, I should say. They put up
Hmm.
on a phenomenal defensive performance. But this one has the potential to be a shootout, a track meet, whatever you want to call it. and I think we'll definitely see more offense in this game than we did last year between the Bucks and the Chiefs. What is your prediction?
I've gone back and forth. I mean, I want to like you said earlier. I mean, the Rams they're definitely here looking for a little revenge after the showing they had with Goff and McVay back when the Patriots beat them. Like you said, only scoring 3 points. I mean, I said it before. And I've talked about it with the Bengals too. I didn't think they were going to get this far. I didn't know how much faith I had in Zach Taylor, and in this a game where again I think Super Bowl obviously comes down to coaching a lot. Obviously McVay has the numbers there, but I can't bring myself to bet against the Bengals. I think it's kind of obvious, not obvious, but I think a lot of people maybe think this is that the Bengals at this point are playing with house money. I've seen a lot of people say, if you had to ask what team has the most pressure going into the Super Bowl, I think it's got to be the Rams, because for the reasons you mentioned too, is that again, don't want to say they bought a trip to the Super Bowl because that just takes away from all the success they've had this season, but you look at how these two teams were built. You just said it. The Bengals had a quick turnaround with all the draft picks. You mentioned it. The Rams, jokingly, but it's true. Seems like they hate draft picks. They, like I said, went out and spent a bunch of money to get these guys here. Um, I I can't bring myself to bet against Joe Burrow. I've done it 2 rounds in a row now. It's come back to bite me in the butt. Thinking Tennessee was going to beat him and thinking the Chiefs are going to beat him. I have the Bengals 26-24. Like you, I have Joe Burrow as an MVP. I think it's an obvious choice to pick the quarterback. But I mentioned it before. For a sleeper, I think Joe Mixon could really have his breakout game. I talked about it. I think Chase is going to be blanketed all game. It might be tough for Higgins and Boyd to get going. If Uzama doesn't play, that just helps Joe Mixon out a little bit more. I think the Bengals might come out and surprise the Rams and maybe run the ball a little bit more than they have or have had to in the playoffs. And I think Mixon could, be a big sleeper factor in this game.
Yeah, that would be wild. I can't remember the last running back to win Super Bowl MVP. I feel like it's
It's
been a
tough,
long
but
time. Um,
I wouldn't be able to pick one off the top of my head.
yeah, we do not have that on us, but if anybody
Nope.
wants to Google it while we're talking here, go
Throw it in
right
the chat.
ahead.
Help us out.
Yeah, throw it in the chat. Tim
Matt doesn't agree
Richards,
with us.
yeah, Matt has Rams 31-27. I can see that happening. I can see it being a close game either way. I'm going with the Bengals though. I'm going to ride the Bengals bandwagon till the end of the season. Tim disagrees as a Bucks fan, saying he disagrees. Of course, last year's Super Bowl was perfect. Fair enough.
I would agree with that.
Yep. But on to prop bets. I know you love prop bets. We're here
I
to
do.
do them
This is.
every year.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan's big into prop bets. I think last year I discussed this with Mike McClellan. We had him on the show. I forget what you were, but
Oh, you know
prop
what? It
bets
was
we got plenty of them.
around this time of year. I had last year. I had COVID.
Oh
That's
yeah,
That's
that's
where it
right.
was. It's like the 1 year anniversary, yeah, or yeah, 1 year anniversary. Last day of quarantine was the Super Bowl. I was able to get out and go downstairs and watch it, so that was a whole lot of fun.
Wonderful. But yeah, on to prop bets. Plenty
Yeah,
of
this
them,
is I
25 of them, and might as well just get underway.
absolutely. I mean, this is something a bunch of friends of mine from work. We've been doing the last couple of years. We go off of Bovada's prop bet sheets, usually done pretty well. I have never won, unfortunately. I've never come close, which kind of stinks. But I thought you and I could run through these really quickly, give our thoughts, and then obviously when the Super Bowl comes and goes, come back to it and see how we did. So I'll run through them real quick. Give the You can give me your answers. I'll give you mine. I got to try to minimize this thing. Working with a chat and everything, like I said, it's been a different thing, but we're getting through it. All right, so the first one, it's yes or no. Will a scoring drive take less time than it takes to sing the national anthem?
No,
I didn't
I
think
don't
so
see any
either.
fast drives in this game.
No, I mean I forgot to look it up, but I think if I did, because I would always kind of go nerdy here when I did these before, and if they had like the what's the over under in the national anthem going to be, I'd always try to look up, how long the last however many have been. I think the average is like a minute and like 50 seconds maybe if I'm wrong. So I'm with you. I don't think any drive's gonna unless we have like a pick six or something, but I don't see that really. And that's really not even a drive to begin with. So yeah, I'm with you. I don't think we're gonna have any really quick drives in this game.
Yeah, it's just as simple as that. In the chat for
Hmm.
anybody who hasn't seen, Matt has Cooper Cup as his MVP. Makes a lot of sense.
Yes, it
Um,
does.
Heads or tails? I'm going with tails. Tails never fails.
I am going with heads. I went nerdy with this. I gotta get notes because I had notes I took on this the other day when I was really bored. For anybody that's really into this stuff, I found it kind of interesting at least. both times Cincinnati has been to the Super Bowl, tails has been the result of the coin toss, and the Rams, the only 4 Super Bowls they have been to, it is alternated every time, heads, tails, head, tails. So those two things combined make me think it is going to be tails for this one.
It's all 50-50 for me. I'm just going
True.
tails.
I did my homework on this, and like I said, absolutely nerded out. So I hope people appreciate the way too long of effort that I put into a stupid coin toss that's been talked about a lot the last couple weeks with how the playoffs have gone down, and maybe this one, hopefully the Super Bowl doesn't get affected by a coin toss, but we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, that's really it.
Speaking of the coin toss, though, the next one is who will win the coin toss. Are you on the Bengals or are you on the Rams?
Bengals.
I'm opposite of you. I'm going Rams. Again, 50-50.
Another
I
one
didn't
that's
have
just
any
a
notes on that one.
toss-up.
Not. What's
Yeah.
up?
Another one that's just a toss-up.
Yeah. No pun intended with the coin toss and everything.
Oh, I didn't even realize that. Let's go.
Yep.
Stay hot.
On fire tonight. Which coach will
what's
be mentioned
next?
first after the first TV timeout after kickoff? Zach Taylor or
Sean
Sean
McVay,
McVay?
100%.
I
Sean
do too. I
McVay. They'll
think
talk about the Super Bowl in the past. They'll talk
Yep.
about the Rams and all the weapons. Sean McVay's this wunderkind coach. It's Sean McVay all day.
Big word. Same exact reasons. I agree with you there. Sean McVay all the way. What will the first offensive play of the game be? Run or pass?
You like Master Yoda over?
Oh yeah, look at that. I didn't even realize that.
Shout out to my
You
aunt.
should be very high on my wall, other way,
Yeah.
reverse. The Bruins stuff with recent retiree we'll get to, Tuukka Rask. Sad day for Bruins fans.
Yep. My aunt made that. Shout out to my aunt. What's next?
What will the first offensive play of the game be? Run or pass?
Pass.
I went the safe and boring route. I said run.
Going pass.
Maybe a Joe Mixon run that will go the distance and maybe get him a chance at a sleeper MVP pick rather. We'll have to wait and see, of course.
Perhaps.
The next one is which team will commit the first penalty of the game?
I'm going Bengals.
I am as well. I think this is where you're probably going to see a little bit of that inexperience. Maybe some guys are a little too jazzed up to get ready to go, and we'll have like an offside or a false start or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. I think we're due for an early holding penalty on whoever has to deal with Aaron Donald.
That's a very fair one.
Or Von Miller.
Maybe a pass interference type of thing, having to deal with Cooper Kupp or OBJ. But who knows? Yep. The next one. Will there be a score in the first 6 minutes and 30 seconds of the game?
I'm saying yes.
I went no. I think the first score of the game is going to be a slow burn and towards the end of the quarter thing. And then as we get further and further in the game, then you're maybe going to see the offenses open up a little bit.
So I said no to within the time of the first one was like within the time of the national anthem, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So I said no to that, but yes within the first 6:30. So take that as you will. Damn, my head.
I mean that still adds up. Like I said, I mean if we're going off the average time, like we don't think a team is going to score in like whatever, like I said, it was a minute 50 or whatever the average time is, but makes sense. I lost my train. Where are we here? We did this. Oh, this one. What will the first score be? A touchdown or a field goal?
Touchdown.
I had field goal. I think, like I said, slow drives for both teams, stall out, field goal, and then going off of that, which team will score first?
The Bengals. I think the Bengals win the toss, take the ball, and score on the first drive.
Okay, I'd like to see that. Hoping that the Bengals win. I think they're going to be playing from behind though to start. I have the Rams kicking the first field goal of the game. This is a pretty obvious one. Maybe we'll be surprised by it. Which team will record the first quarterback sack? We talked about it a little bit. Which team do we think is going to give up the first sack?
Rams. Well,
I
Bengals,
so too.
but Rams are going to get the first sack.
There we go. I'm good with words. I found this one kind of funny. I would have taken it a step further and said, who would be bleeped out? But the question we are dealing with is will lyrics be bleeped out during the halftime show? Of course, if you live under a rock and don't know, it's a bevy of Kendrick Lamar, Snoop Dogg, Eminem, Dr. Dre, Mary J. Blige. I think this has got to be the most obvious yes in maybe prop betting history when it comes down to yes or no questions.
Which one was this again? Sorry, I was looking at something on Twitter.
Will a word be bleeped out at the halftime show?
Yes.
If you had to take it a step further and place a bet on who that, we don't obviously have that. What?
Wait, I don't. Oh yeah, will a word be bleeped out? Yeah, I got confused there for a sec.
Okay. My
So
question was going to be if you had to take it a step further. We, of course, don't have this on the prop sheet, but if you had to bet on which performer will be bleeped out, who would you put your money on?
who do we have again? Eminem, Kendrick
Eminem,
Lamar.
Snoop, Kendrick Lamar, Dr. Dre, and Mary J. Blige. I think Mary J. Blige.
Definitely not Mary J. Blige.
No,
Um,
she's the one I'd be like, absolutely no chance. I said Eminem when I asked this to friends of mine the other day.
I'm gonna say Kendrick.
Yeah, okay. I had a couple people say Snoop, which I think is a
See,
good
a
one
lot of
too.
people are excited for this because Kendrick hasn't put out a lot of music in the last few years. And I don't think he performs live very much. And Kendrick has
Hmm.
a very like passionate fan base. And I wouldn't consider myself one of like the hugely passionate fans, but like I do like a lot of his music, but I'm not like one
Hmm.
of those diehards. But I'm gonna go Kendrick. Matt has Snoop Dogg. So we're all across the board here, covering all the
Yep.
bases. What is next?
The next one, this is very small. I can't see these. What will the result of the first coach's challenge be? Confirmed or overturned?
I confirmed.
I had overturned. I feel like you don't tend to see a lot of challenges unless it's like obvious in the Super Bowl. It's a dire situation. So I think both coaches will save it. I don't know who's going to use it first, but I think both teams will save theirs until you have to need a call overturned. So I think that's why we're going to go with that. Maybe we won't have a challenge throughout the entire game, and then
Yeah.
in that case, this question will just be thrown out.
I think if anybody, it's Sean McVay.
Yeah, he tends. I feel like kind of. Hey, I mean, he had that in the. That was kind of the talking point. One of the talking points it could have been. He had what, two challenges used and lost a couple timeouts and went to the fourth quarter with like one timeout in that NFC Championship game, which could have came back to bite him. I think so. Maybe we'll see him throw some challenge flags around again in this one. On to the next one. This might help out Matt when it comes to his MVP pick. Will Cooper Kupp score a touchdown in this game?
Yes. That's a
I
lock. That's a
I have
lock.
yes as well. I think you mentioned earlier you can only hope to contain him. You can't stop him. So I think it's an obvious one that Kupp's gonna score a touchdown in this one.
Agreed.
Will there be a successful 2-point conversion in this game? Is the next one.
What did I have for this one? Yes, I do think
I had
so.
yes as well. Again, dire situation. Got to make a play. I think you'll have one late in this game, and again, hopefully for the Bengals. Next one, I think this is a lock too. Maybe not as big as a Cooper Kupp touchdown, but will Matt Stafford throw an interception in this game?
Wait a second, Matt. We need clarification. Um, you think Cooper Cup is going to have 3 touchdowns this game? We need
Well, that would
confirmation of this. That
that
would
would
be
get him
nuts.
MVP.
Gabriel
That
Davis mode.
absolutely. I mean, that would be consensus MVP, unless the Rams end up blowing the Bengals out, and then maybe you give Matt Stafford.
Wow.
I mean, that's a tough one though. I mean, if he's getting 3 touchdown catches, then Matt Stafford, I feel like has a legitimate shot to kind of overpass him as MVP considerate or
Yeah. So
have an
wait,
MVP
what was the
consideration.
question again? I got thrown off by that.
Sorry, a Stafford pick. Will there be a Stafford pick in this
Yes,
game?
I think you'll
I
throw
think it's a
one
lock.
pick.
Yep, I do too. The next one, kind of a weird one. Will a kick hit the upright or crossbar in this game?
No.
I also had no. If you're gonna miss, it's just gonna be a miss wide left or right. No craziness.
I would love
Hopefully in
to
this
see a
game,
doink though. From the
a doink
Rams.
in.
A doink
Oh, doink
in.
for the Rams. Okay, yeah, that would be nice.
I don't want to see it Evan McPherson doink unless it's in.
No chance.
Money
With how
Mac,
automatic
whatever
he
the
is,
heck they
hopefully
call him.
too. Knock on wood.
What's
Um,
what is it they call him? Money Mac?
I don't
Think
know. Do
so.
they have a nickname for him?
I think it's Money Mac.
Well, that would work. I mean, he is lights out. The next one, will a flea flicker be attempted in the game?
Yes, I'm all in on the flea flicker. I feel
Okay, I
like
am
a Super Bowl is a great opportunity to have some fun with the play, and flea
true.
flickers are more often than not effective. So the
Yeah, they
NFL
seem to
needs
be for
more
the
flea
most part
flickers. Grow the game. Grow the game.
with just all out flea flickers. I went boring
Grow
compared
the
to you.
game.
I said no. I think you're gonna get more straight. Maybe you have some other trick plays. Maybe OBJ will throw a pass in this game like we've seen him do in the past. But no flea flickers. I went boring. How many receptions will Jamar Chase have? The number was over 7 or under 7.
I have under 7.
I do as well.
I
We've
don't
talked a
know.
lot about this. We don't
I
think
think he's
he's
good
gonna
for. I
have
think
that.
he's good for 6, 5 or 6. It'll be
Yeah, that's what I
close.
had. He'll get. I feel like it's gonna be the same thing you saw last game. Is he'll start off slow, catch a couple late, but I don't think 7's. Again, I think they're gonna have to spread the ball around and maybe take some of the focus off of him.
Yep.
The
I agree.
next one, will any quarterback throw for 400 or more yards in the game?
No, but I hope I'm wrong.
I said no as well. I think Burrow gets close, though. I think he's going to probably end up in the 390 somewhere.
Ooh, okay. I like it. I like it. I don't think anybody hit 400 or more.
No. All right,
Nope.
fair enough. Who will rush for more yards? I went back and forth on this one. The two options were Joe Mixon and Cam Akers.
I'm going Joe Mixon. I think this
I am
is
as well.
not like easy, but I'm pretty comfortable going Mixon here.
I had Akers at first because at times the Bengals have struggled to stop the run, but then obviously you said he was on the injury report. I saw that as well. And then like I said earlier, I remembered Sony Michel. I think they may have to lean heavily. Maybe they choose to lean more heavily on him, and I think you're going to see a more even split between him and Akers. So that's why I go Joe Mixon. Onto the receiving yards. Who will have more receiving yards in the game, Jamar Chase or Cooper Kupp? This one might be an obvious one with how we've talked about these two guys so far.
Cooper Kupp.
All right, and I'm going to ask Matt because I know he's listening. Cooper Kupp with 3 touchdowns. How many yards does he end up with to go along with those 3 touchdowns?
Just for fun, yeah. We need to hear
MVP. He's going to come back with like 400 or something ridiculous, and then it's going to be obvious that Matt Stafford should win MVP in that case. Speaking of, who will record more passing yards in the game, Joe Burrow or Matt Stafford?
Joe Burrow, but I could see this being like a razor thin difference.
Yeah, I went Burrow as well. I think it's going to be close though. Like
Agreed.
390-ish for Burrow, like 380, 85-ish for Stafford in the losing effort.
Wow.
But yeah, it's going to be close.
Sheesh.
Will we have an overtime game? Yes or no?
275 yards? Matt.
Ridiculous. It's a couple
Holy
of deep
crap.
balls for 80-plus yard
Cooper
touchdowns.
Kupp. Goodness gracious. One-upping Jamar Chase's 266 in the regular season.
I would say so.
Matt is very high on Cooper Kupp. My goodness. Wow. What a prediction. What a
That
prediction.
is crazy. No.
Very crazy.
Like I said, I'd like to know what everybody else is doing in this game. If he's like, it's just Bengals just completely fall asleep on Cooper Kupp in this game defensively. Last 3, like I said, overtime. Yes or no? Did you answer this before we jumped into the comments again?
I said no to overtime.
I did as well. I think, like I said, down to the wire. Very well could come down to a last-second field goal, but I don't think we're going to have overtime. We already talked about this one, gave our predictions, but just going off the prop sheet, which team will win the Super Bowl?
Bengals.
I had Bengals as well, as we know. And then the final one. Again, this one helps out Matt. He would be betting yes for this one. Will a non-quarterback be Super Bowl MVP?
No.
You and I both have no. We are both going with Joe Burrow. Matt is sticking with a wild, historic game for Cooper Kupp. If anybody else has any crazy predictions they can throw, Rams, you guys want to bet?
Oh, man. Yeah, but I mean, we had some good variation early on, but sort of a lot of the same.
Tapered out towards the end, yeah.
Excuse me. Jeez. Hope I don't die.
Wouldn't be good.
Don't know what just happened there. But yeah, any other Super Bowl thoughts? Just to recap for anybody who didn't see our score predictions, I have 30-28 Bengals. Ryan has 26-24, both with Joe Burrow winning MVP. Any other Super Bowl thoughts?
I don't have any. Obviously, just looking forward to the game. Looking forward to obviously the commercials, and maybe we can discuss when we come back. It seems like you have a thought.
I have a prop bet.
Okay.
Which upcoming release do we see a trailer for of the two? The Kenobi series on Disney Plus or the new Doctor Strange movie?
Oh, the new Doctor Strange movie.
I'm going with that as well. I hope I'm wrong. They announced the release date is May 25th for Kenobi. Thought it was going to be May 4th, but could go either way. Could be just another Batman one, which would suck because we've already seen enough from Batman.
Movie does look good though.
Yeah. Yeah, it certainly does. I don't know how I feel about Robert Pattinson as Batman, but I don't know. I'm going to go into it with an open mind. But yeah, that's about it for football. Super Bowl is going to be awesome. Can't wait. Definitely weird to have it the day before Valentine's Day. Definitely feels different and not the first Sunday of the month. Who's going to Disney World? The Bengals. The Bengals. That's who's going to Disney World. Matt? On to Bruins. We have Celtics next in the outline, but we have to go to Bruins.
I think it makes the most sense. Yep, there's more pressing stuff with the Bruins on a lot of different uh, situations. One, as I kind of alluded to, with the one behind me, and then a couple of other players as well.
Yeah, I mean, Tuukka Rask announces his retirement today. There was a report during the game last night of this happening. Bruce Cassidy wasn't so quick to say whether it was going to happen or not, and it did.
Did you find the? Sorry to cut you off, but did you find the timing of it weird at all? I mean, I was what, middle of the second period it came out that he was probably going to call it quits. Like, I feel like it's just a weird time. Like, not saying like obviously he meant to drop it, or Fluto, because it was Fluto I think that had the report first, right?
Yep.
Maybe that's like an after the game type of thing, but I don't know. Not that I've seen some people say like, oh, the Bruins, that's when they started to play like crap last night is when the Tuukka Rask stuff came out. I don't think there's a correlation there. Like, they're not sitting in the locker room waiting to hear about Tuukka Rask situation. But I don't know. I just wanted to get your thoughts, see if you had any kind of overarching, like I said, thoughts about this, or if you found it weird at all.
Yeah, I did think the timing was a little weird. Not like a bad way, but wasn't expecting it. That's for sure.
Hmm.
Um, it's just really unfortunate for a guy that's done so much for the Bruins, all-time leader in wins, one of the best goalies in the history of the Bruins, history of the NHL. Um, I think we'll definitely have his number retired to answer one of the questions we have in the prompt on the screen.
I think, yeah.
I think it just has to be. He just has to be. He's been here for so long, 15 years.
It's
Incredible
the
career.
franchise leader in wins. Like, that's, I feel like, enough as is.
Yeah, that's the one thing you need to put Tuukka Rask in the Hall of Fame. It's really that simple. Um, it sucks that it had to end like this. A tough ending in the playoffs last year. He had one solid game, but then a couple rough ones here. Had 4 appearances, I think it was. I've lost 3 followers since tweeting out a poll saying should Tuukka Rask's number be put in the rafters. So that's funny. Shout out to the people who unfollowed me on Twitter. Right
Vote
now
no
we
if you
got
have that strong of opinions.
yeah.
Jesus.
Um, right now we got 76.2% yes and 23.8% no. Of 63 votes. So I honestly expected the poll to be the other way. I thought the haters would get to it. Um, Number retired probably misses out on the Hall of Fame. Yeah, I don't
I
think he's a
I would
I don't
agree
think
with
he's a
that one, I think.
surefire Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
But he's got a case, but I don't know. It's really hard to say. But a guy that undoubtedly, has accomplished a lot as a Bruin. I've been retweeting stuff all day, kind of to piss people off and just for people just to remind people of how great he's been. Um,
Hmm.
308 career wins, 921 career save percentage, fourth highest in NHL history. UC Saros is actually ahead of him as the only current goalie up there at 922. Ken Dryden and Dominic Hasek are up there as well. Both, pretty good goalies, I'd say. You know, no biggie. Let's see some other stats here from Tucker Boynton. Tucker Boynton was just rattling them off. Tuukka Rask career rank amongst goalies in the last 50 years. Save percentage is third. Goals against is fourth. Um, Save percentage and goals against, you got Hasek and Dryden. Then you got Brodeur as he is fourth behind Brodeur, Hasek, and Dryden for goals against. Career seasons with a 915 save percentage and 2.15 goals against average in NHL history. Rask is tied for the most with Dominic Hasek at 5, Jean Plante at 3, and 9 players tied for 2. Best career save percentage in the conference/cup finals in NHL history. Minimum 100 shots faced. 98 players qualify. Sorry, I'm not looking at the screen. Looking over at my Twitter here. Tim Thomas, number 1 at 943 save percentage. Tuukka Rask, number 2 at 941. And Tark says, pretty remarkable for a choker. I'd have to agree, man. Guy chokes all the time. Um,
Yep.
Crazy. For Aaron Marinovsky, the most mind-boggling performance from Tuukka Rask was sweeping the Penguins in the 2013 Eastern Conference Final. He was 4-0, stopped 134 of 136 shots, which is a 985 save percentage against that stacked Penguins team that they, of course, swept. Evgeny Malkin, Chris Letang, Sidney Crosby, stacked roster, top to bottom, really good depth in that team. And Tuukka Rask shut him out straight up. and the Bruins took advantage and scored on Tomas Vokoun when they needed to. He was just he was incredible, and it sucks that his legacy is going to be remembered by so many as a choker. Um,
Mm-hmm.
People mad at him for leaving the bubble when his daughter was very sick because some people are just bad people. Um, Tucaraska is from J Fresh Hockey. Goals saved above expected leaders from '07 to 2022, which is expected goals against all situations. Carey Price is number one with a 118.4 goal save above expected rating, and Tuukka Rask is number two with a 106.8. So pretty good,
Pretty
pretty
good. Pretty good company to be in.
self-explanatory. Goal save above expected. You can do the math there. Um, yeah, he's a legend. I can't wait to see his jersey retired. Sucks that it had to end this way at 34. A guy that had some ability left, but you mess up your hip at 34. It's a position where you have to drive from the legs, and the hips are involved in that. In turn, it's just a recipe for disaster. Sadly, in this scenario, he tried to make it work. It didn't. It's really unfortunate, but unfortunately, the hip is a very sensitive area, especially as you get older, and especially if you're a goalie. You need that power from the hip and your legs. And if he can't do it, he's going out on his terms. He doesn't want to, go out there and not be able to give his best, and I have a lot of respect for that.
The one thing I was going to ask you is you mentioned the comeback attempt. I mean, obviously the comeback attempt. Do you think the way he goes out, you think this hurts his legacy at all? Because I've already seen some people say
A
like, "Oh, what
little.
did you come back for in the first place if you weren't gonna, you couldn't play, you couldn't like
Well,
stiff it out?"
he
Like,
didn't. He was hoping this wasn't going to happen.
oh, that's
Um,
yeah.
I think this is another thing we talked about last week. I think he came back a little early than at least I expected. I don't think there was like a
Hmm.
set date in mind, but I think he came back a little early, and not having Providence to get ready hurt him. Um, I was kind of hoping he would take all the time he needs, go down to Providence, and then come back in like mid-February. Just take all the time you need. Let Swayman get more reps. It's whatever. You have
Hmm.
Olmark. We know this. Um, yeah, I mean it's gonna hurt his legacy a little bit. It's a tough way to go out with a while injured, a tough performance in the later portion of the Islanders series last year. Um, that tough game against Anaheim, he did have one win against the Flyers, but it definitely is tough. I think this would have been his last year as a Bruin
Hmm.
if he finished the season, because I just don't think it's feasible to do this every year with three goalies. It's not common
No,
either.
no. Hmm.
Even though Tuukka, if he were to stay healthy, could probably still be pretty good. Um, the Bruins are going to have to try and make a cup run with Linus Olmark and Jeremy Swayman when it gets down to the point. Is it going to be all Olmark? Is it going to be a committee? We'll see what happens, but that's a discussion for another day. A total legend. We'll see his number in the Raptors. I can't wait for that day. A guy that's truly been disrespected by so many people that are dense and just really, are short sighted in their arguments. Can't let the facts get in the way. That's just how people operate. Some people operate, um, and that's just a shame. I'm gonna remember all the great things Tuukka Rask has done, all the crazy saves, the meltdowns, um, just his kind of mysterious demeanor. He's very candid
Hmm.
too. Um, Guy loves Bud Light. He's got his own alcohol brand. Very good, by the way. I've tried the long drink. Big fan of the cranberry in particular. It sucks. I've dreaded this day for so long. I really wish he could have gone out with a cup, but sometimes you just don't get that lucky.
Hmm. Well, I was gonna say, hey, if the one positive you could take away from this is you're never gonna have to hear those people on Twitter again, bitch and complain about Tuukka Rask, because
Oh,
now
that's
they
not true.
that
They'll
that's
still
the big
find ways to
question
talk
now
about
is
him.
where do those people go, or who do those like who's
They'll
the
go to
next
Swayman.
unlucky SOB?
They'll go to Swayman. They'll
Yeah,
go a little bit to Allmark, and anytime Swayman struggles, like, is he the next guy, dude? I don't know.
Swayman's a good one
They
because
should
I
have
mean I heard
traded him for Chikrin, dude.
yeah yep.
Um, yeah, but can we just agree? This isn't a problem for us because we're rational.
Hmm.
Can we just agree to not just harp on the goalie for stupid shit? Like,
Oh no,
come on.
I told you when it happened. I turned that page. I mean I don't want to say I was like huge Rask hater, but we talked about it. The cup run against the Blues. I mean, that turned the page for me. He almost single-handedly won you that Stanley Cup Finals. If it wasn't for their defense and their just mental lapses in Game 7, like I was fully on board to support Tuukka Rask then and there. Like I told you at that point, like the flack he was catching in that Cup Final to say that loss was on him was and always will be just an absolute joke, at least to me.
Yeah, it will never ever make sense. But some people are just really, really, really goddamn stupid. Um, and that's unfortunate for them. Couldn't be me. Um, but as we typically do, only one game to recap, and it wasn't great. You saw the Bruins out of the COVID pause come out hot. They did not come out hot for the whole game, at least. In this one, David
Oh, the
Pastronok,
first
Taylor
period they
Hall, and
weren't
Patrice
bad.
Bergeron did, but it did not last. Hopefully, the Bruins can, of course, right the ship here. A goalie can only do so much. The D needs to step up too. Yeah, it's just
Yep.
that's totally right, Matt. Some people just don't objectively look at things. They always just go right to the goalie when really there are multiple factors. The game against the Penguins last night was not what you wanted to see coming out of the All-Star break. They lose 4-2. Jeremy Swayman makes 21 saves on 24 shots. Great start, bad finish. Um, Danton Heinen revenge game. Sadly, scores two
That's for
goals in
sure.
28 seconds. I mean, it just doesn't
Also,
get.
I texted you when I
People
was at
always
work. Like,
joke. People always joke about like, oh, like a former Bruin, time for them to score, and it happened twice with
very
Dan
quickly.
Heinenson last night. I was about to say tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Um, of course. I mean, of course.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was trying to flip between, like I said, was texting you last night, this game and the Celtics game. Um, and obviously saw the two Pastrnak goals. Like I said to you, I'll take full responsibility for this Bruins loss, seeing that the two times I turned away from it, Danton Heinen, like you said, scored 28 seconds apart, and I thought you were joking at first. And then again, when I turned away from it, Sidney Crosby scored. So we can pin this loss on me. It's okay. I'll take full blame. And if people want to boo and hiss me, that's fine. But yeah, I find it just kind of funny too that we always joke about like, oh, this person revenge game, and then it actually finally comes to be in this obviously bad situation. But
I don't miss an
what can you do?
opportunity to tweet about a revenge game. I never do.
Fair enough.
Um, First goal, I mean, Riley and Carlo caught chasing. Heinen moseys his way in, scores in the backhand. Tough goal to let up. Not the best look for Riley and Carlo. Beats Swayman. 28 seconds later, this is one Swayman definitely wants back. Shot from the right side on Heinen's off wing. Bounces off Swayman's shoulder and over and in. Not great. Just a tough, fluky one. Third goal, Sidney Crosby, 499th goal of Sidney Crosby's career. Swayman can't close the angle quick enough. Crosby scores. But Forbert and Carlo were kind of in La La Land as well, so I'm not going to put full blame on Swayman, but that's another one I think he wants back. Took a little bit of flack from Bruce Cassidy after the game, but, sometimes you just don't have a great night. This is probably the second or third. I don't know if you'd consider this one a full blown stinker, but Swayman's had some rocky performances every once in
Hmm.
a while. It's gonna happen. He's very young. Um, Again, I'll say it every time. Like I'm not worried about Jeremy Swayman. This game doesn't make me any more or less worried about Jeremy Swayman in any way. And then the empty netter was just brutal. I don't know what the hell was going on with the puck, but Craig Smith and Charlie McAvoy couldn't handle it. Brian Russ is eventually sprung for the empty netter. Game over. Um, Not great. You gotta show some more toughness later in the game, and maybe make things a little more interesting. The Bruins did not. Some storylines. Patrice Bergeron, unfortunately hurt by Sidney Crosby. Crosby kind of turned and caught him on the skate blade with his skate. Bergeron goes hard into the boards. They think it might be a head injury. We know Bergeron's history with concussions. The last thing you want to hear with Bergeron, especially with Brad Marchand's looming suspension, segues us
Hmm.
perfectly into the fact that Brad Marchand lost his cool last night, went ape shit. He did the thing in intermission where Tristan Jarry was trying
Flip the
to
puck
flip a
over the
puck
glass.
over the glass. Marchand sonked him, and yeah, Jarry wasn't happy. I think Letang might have went up to Marchand as well. Marchand was barking at him. Just a typical heel move. Um,
Hmm.
Pretty funny to be honest. Marchand also blocked Sidney Crosby from getting to the bench after losing his stick on a faceoff. That was funny. It's just Marchand being Marchand, but then Marchand
Hmm.
being Marchand became too much.
In the
And
negative way, yeah.
I don't know what Tristan Jari said to him, but he was saying something to him. Marchand punches him in the face. Then he jabs him in the neck.
Wax him with a
Like,
stick, yeah.
the punch wasn't enough, dude. Like, come on. It's just one of those things. It pisses me off even more because you just lost Bergeron.
Well, that was yeah the big thing. I mean, I saw the Marchand crap on Twitter. Listening to Felger Maz say that was kind of the point they brought up, is they said like basically the same thing. That Bergeron's out now, Marchand kind of becomes the de facto captain in that spot, and that's the antics you get into. Like Bruce Cassidy, listening to him after the game, sounded pissed, rightfully so. Like it's more the same crap from Marchand. Like, how many times we sit here and say, like, this is a situation where you should know better. Like, get a control of yourself. Like, I don't know what Jari could have even said to him to get a reaction like that, but like I said, it's completely uncalled for. And Marchand's a guy that needs to know better in the situation. Like you said, with Bergeron being out too, it looks even worse.
Yeah, and we have some breaking news about Brad Marchand. Um,
Can I
Mike Def-
guess?
Mike DeFabo from the Pittsburgh Post Gazette, who is a Penguins beat writer, reports his suspension. Do you want to guess how many games it is?
What did he get suspended for earlier in the year for the slew foot? Was it 3 games? Do you
I
know off the
don't
top of your
remember
head? Do
off
you
the top of
remember?
my head.
I was just gonna try to base it off of that. I'm gonna go with 5 games.
6 games.
Okay, I mean to me that's justified because what he did last night wasn't. So now
Um,
you're in real trouble. We're
yeah,
subbing him
I
for
mean,
6 games. I know
you're
you'll get into the
missing.
game previews in a little bit, but who knows how long Bergeron's going to be out for now. Now you don't have Marchand. I saw a lot of people, rightfully so, kind of losing their minds about the practice lines today. But what can you do? Because now you're down your 2 top players. Like it's going to be a rough stretch moving forward here. And like I said, Marchand doesn't make that any easier.
Yeah, suspended 6 games for being a dumbass. Needs to know better. He's kind of got back to his ways a little bit this year after probably 3, 4 years of being pretty tame for the
Mm,
most part. This has not been confirmed by the league yet, but against the Penguins, from a beat writer from the Pittsburgh
that's a
Post
good
Gazette,
beat writer, yeah.
I don't know. I'm putting some credibility to it. Um, like it's really dumb by Marchand trying to edit the text here. Um, Real quick, just for OCD reasons, put a little dash here, and
Well, you do
boom.
that. The one thing I was going to bring up too is, I mean, he was obviously going to get suspended, but if it was something like 1 or 2 games, I don't know if this is something that they ever really do in hockey, but I mean, like I said, with how pissed off Bruce Cassidy was after the game, maybe you can't afford to do it with, like I said, Bergeron being out. But if I was him, I would have sat Marchand down for like, God forbid he got 1 or 2 games. Like, if I was the Bruins, I would have been like, dude, what are you doing? Like, take a seat for tonight because this is something you like we just said. Bergeron's out. You can't be doing this crap, and now you're gonna have to pay the price for it.
It's just it's one of those things where like you got to know your reputation.
Absolutely. Like, and again, like I said, you already got suspended once this year. Like, doing something like this, the spotlight's going to be on you again, and you're going to get hit again. Like,
No tweet from NHL player safety yet, but I'm going to choose to believe that report for now. You know, a source in Pittsburgh. I mean, the punch wasn't
could you
enough. He had
imagine
to
if
go for the jab.
it's not real though, and he gets like 1 game? How pissed people are going to
No,
be?
it's an in-person hearing, so I mean, they have the
Yeah,
liberty
that's true.
to
You're already
give him
yeah.
like
No, you're
five
getting
or
suspended.
six
That's fair.
games most
Yep.
likely. Um, yeah, I mean, you can't do shit like this. He's got to be smart. He's been in the league long enough. He knows his reputation. You just got to be smarter. It's really just dumb by Marchand. I bet he's probably pretty embarrassed, and he should be because you
Absolutely.
can't do that. Um, Other noteworthy notes from this game: Pastronok, of course, having 2 goals, one on the power play. Uh, Taylor Hall had 2 helpers. Eric Howell picked up another point, and Patrice Bergeron with the helper. But the biggest thing, of course, being the Danton Heiner revenge game and all the chaos. Bergeron's out at minimum a game. Hopefully that's it. Hopefully it's not anything stemming from his previous concussions because that is the last thing the Bruins need. Um, we talked when they played that game against the Islanders how much they missed Bergeron and Marchand in that game.
Gonna see that again. Like,
This
we're
is this
right
is going
back
to be
where we were a month
frightening.
ago, it seems like, or 2 months
This
ago.
this is going to be frightening, and you're playing the Hurricanes. Like, good luck tomorrow night. Good
Mm-hmm.
luck.
Do you pencil this one in as a loss? Not to be negative,
Yes.
but like,
Yes. Yeah, just double
unless whoever's
checking they
in
were
net
without both
absolutely
of them.
steals it for you. But
I assume Molmark tomorrow. Um,
mhm.
but yeah, that segues us into the Carolina game. Sebastian Aho leading them in scoring 45 points in 40 games. I actually didn't update these from last night, so these might be a little bit different. Um, I don't think the Hurricanes did they play last night? No, they did play last night, so these might be different. Let me check those real quick. The Hurricanes are very good. A team we talked about a couple times. They lose Dougie Hamilton. The Devils haven't even had Dougie Hamilton for a while. He had COVID issues and he has a broken jaw. So tough sledding for them. Aho is
Yep.
actually up to 46 points in 41 games now. Still leads the team in scoring. Svechnikov not too far behind with 39 in 41. Aho is still one of the more underrated players in the league. Huge big time player for them. Frederick Anderson in net is 24-6-1 with a 2.08 goals against and a 927 save percentage. Only one shutout somehow. Antti Raanta 6-3-1 with a 239 goals against with a 909 and one shutout. Very good team, top to bottom. Great depth. It hurts me to say it, but Tony DeAngelo has been a great addition, putting up some points on the back end for them. Has helped fill the void, at least offensively, because he's, to my knowledge, still not very good in his defensive zone. Um, the void left by Dougie Hamilton. Frederick Anderson looking looking pretty good outside of Toronto. Antti Ranson's looking pretty good. It's a damn good team. It's a cup contender. Whether they make a splash at the deadline doesn't seem like that's a guarantee with the reports that came out over the past week. But Carolina very good. Even scarier when you do not have your two best penalty killers,
Top two guys.
your
Yep.
two best overall forwards, and your two biggest leaders on this team. Not great. This could get very ugly. I will be shocked if it doesn't. Because Carolina is very good. They're gonna know this going in. They're gonna know how to game plan or lack game planning for Bergeron and
Mhm.
Marchand and try and take advantage and get an easy win. The team they faced last night, the Ottawa Senators, is next up in Ottawa. You got them on the 12th. Drake Batherson, despite being hurt since January 25th, still leads them in scoring with 13 goals and 21 assists in 34 games for 34 points. Matt Murray has been resurgent since being called up from the minors. That crazy pick that went around of him where he looked like he had aged 50 years. I guess it's working. Playing very well, improving his stats. He's 5-6-2 overall, the 272 goals against and a 914 save percentage. One shutout. Anton Forsberg 7-8-1 with a 302, a 909, and one shutout. Josh Norris is hurt, so they'll probably be missing him. I don't think he'll be back. Um, the Senators are one of those teams. They're like one of the best bad teams in the league. Um, they can sneak up on you. They've beat some good teams this year. They've got their rebuild showing like the fruits of their labor a little bit. Um, yeah, this is a team. I don't know if I'd call it a trap game, but like a team that could sneak up on you. Then you got the Rangers on the road on the 15th. Artemi Panarin leads them in scoring 52 points in 42 games. Igor Shesterkin, arguably the Vezina favorite, 22-5-2 with a 210 goals against average, a 937 save percentage, and three shutouts. This kid has been a freak show for like 5 years. Him and Ilya Sorokin tearing it up as young bucks in the KHL, the MHL. Now they're over here doing the same. Um, Alexander Georgiev, 7-7-2 with a 299 and an 898. Chris Kreider leads the league in goals still. Didn't see that happening. Shout out to the former BC Eagle.
Didn't even know that.
He does lead the league, yes. By one last I checked. Rangers are pretty good this year. This is another team. I think is surprising some people. It's weird because they've got guys like Capo Caco, Alexi Lafreniere, Filipino, all underachieving, and they're still very good. Adam Fox just got activated from IR today, so unless something happens, they'll have him in the mix against the Bruins. This will be another tough test. One I think the Bruins can pass, though. Hopefully, for their sake, they get Georgiev. That would be great. Not have to deal with Shesterkin. But it's a tough slate of games. Even Ottawa, like I said, they can sneak up on you. So I don't think they'll just go down easily. That game could be a little bit competitive. Any thoughts on the upcoming week outside of things we have discussed in the past?
Now, the only thing I was just going to add is, I mean, I know you said Ottawa may or may not be a trap game. I feel like now with obviously no Bergeron or Marchand, like none of these games are as winnable as maybe you thought they were going to be moving into it. I know you said Carolina's obviously, as you have here in the outline, a wagon, so maybe that one you didn't really have as a win to begin with if you had Bergeron or Marchand, but not having those two guys, it's obvious. We've talked about it enough as is, makes these three games even tougher. And you hope Bergeron misses just the Carolina game and then maybe makes things easier in the Ottawa and the Rangers games, but at this point, who knows? You talked about it. The injury history he's had, especially with not that he's been injured a ton, but like I'm getting at the concussion history, like it's a scary thing for him.
Yeah, 100%. Not really. I am looking forward to this week, but I am cautiously looking forward to this week. Um,
Mm-hmm.
week being the next 7 days until our next episode. As we do it here. Second half predictions. Um, I gave some specific scoring predictions. Some NHL
Are these
trade deadline
affected?
predictions.
The only thing I was going to ask is, are these numbers affected now with Marchand's stupidity and Bergeron maybe having to miss some extended time?
Yes.
Okay.
Sadly. Thanks, Marchand. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so let's get into them. David
Okay.
Pastronok currently has 24 goals, 21 assists, 45 points. I have him finishing with 43 goals and 81 points to finish the season. I think he continues his hot streak, finishes just under a point per game. I have Charlie Coyle currently 20 points, finishing with 38. Charlie McAvoy currently 14. Wait, that doesn't feel right. 14 points for McAvoy. Did I mess that up? It does not feel right. I think I goofed on McAvoy here. That might be Craig. That's Craig Smith. That's why
I can
I'm
say
reading
if my
ahead.
thing would load, I'd tell you, but
Craig Smith, 14 points in 37 games. I have him having a fairly decent second half of the season, picking it up a little bit, finishing with 16, 16, and 32. I think he's got 10 goals in him. I think Craig Smith um, is battling a bit of an injury still. I think he's still not fully healthy, but I think he's going to relish the top pairing ice time and start putting up some more points. Charlie McAvoy currently 28 points in 41 games. I have him finishing a strong second half with 24 points, finishing with 13, 39, and 52. Believe that'd be a career high. Yeah, that's got to be a career high for McAvoy. Just continuing to blossom into that further into that number one defenseman uh, role for the Bruins. Yeah, his career high is 32, so 52 will be a career high. He's almost already eclipsed that 32 point career high. I have them finishing 21, 14, and 4 in the remaining games. Already 0-1 to start. Not great. Finishing 47, 28, and 7. Fourth in a stacked Atlantic division behind the Maple Leafs, Lightning, and Panthers. I have all top four teams finishing with 100 plus points. Linus Olmark finishing with 29 wins. Jeremy Swayman making 10 starts. This was before the Tuukka Rask news. Looking like he'll be on track for that at this point. And then some trade predictions. I have the big Bruins trade being Jake DeBrusk, Mason Lohrei, a 2022 first round pick, and a 2023 sixth round pick just as a sweetener to the Vancouver Canucks for JT Miller and Luke Shen. I think the Bruins will want to add on defense, but I just don't have a good feeling they're going to get Chychrun. I think they're going to be outbidded for him. And JT Miller, I mean, for anyone listening, did you see what he did to Arizona last night? Going coast to coast. I need it, and I need it badly. I think the Bruins are
the
absolutely in the
Bruins need
market
it
for.
too.
Yeah, they need it badly. I think they should be heavy after JT Miller. I saw one report. I think they talked about this on the Cold Stove podcast. I know for a fact they're not in a rush from what they talked about there, but they might be looking for 2 first-round picks. They like Fabian Lysell. That was another report I saw. I forget who that was from. They're probably not going to get Fabian Lysell, so yeah, you're going to have to renegotiate. Um,
Yeah.
as a consolation prize, I think they will get a top prospect from the Bruins if they get a deal done. I think in this case that'll be Mason Lohrei, unless they really like Urho Vakanainen enough. If Vakanainen is healthy enough for them to feel comfortable, um, I think it's a hefty price for JT Miller. Could even cost more, but I don't know. I think this is a good starter. I think this is an offer they would consider. That's what I'm going with for my prediction, just for fun. I think this could definitely happen, but for the Bruins' sake, I think they would prefer to not have to give up this much, or even have just David Krejci come back for free, which we'll talk about. We'll talk about David Krejci a little bit later. I have Zach Senyshyn being traded to the Ottawa Senators for a 2022 sixth-round pick. Um, I quoted this before with Jake DeBrusk. I'll say it again. If there's a one-for-one swap out there, it might have happened already. I think Sweeney is patient, but I don't know. I think at this point he's probably going to hold out to package DeBrusk as his value slowly increases over time. Um, Other predictions across the NHL, I have Claude Giroux at 50% retained, going to the Colorado Avalanche for top prospect Drew Helleson of the Boston College Eagles, Tyson Jost, and a 2023 first-round pick, because their 2022 first-round pick is property of the Arizona Coyotes from the Darcy Kemper trade. Surprise trade, I have Patrick Laine being traded to the Anaheim Ducks for a 2022 first-round pick and top prospect Braden Tracy, 20-year-old prospect currently tearing up the AHL pretty good for the San Diego Gulls. I don't know. I just don't feel like Line A is going to last in Columbus. I think it's a 50-50 shot. He's playing very good as of late. If he keeps this up, they could sell high and get a good amount of value for him. He is a free agent in the summer. They just signed him to a qualifying offer in the offseason. I think the idea with their cap space situation in Anaheim being plentiful, I think last time I checked they had $11.5 million. Adding Patrick Laine to potentially play with Trevor Zegras would be absolutely out of this world. Patrick Laine is getting back to his old form. He's a guy I think is absolutely still capable of scoring 40 goals yearly. I think this would be a massive pickup. It could even cost more. I think that might be contingent on an extension in place if it were to cost more. But yeah, I think Patrick Laine, if he is moved, is a good bet to end up with the Anaheim Ducks. They have the cap space to accommodate it and the prospects and picks.
I was just gonna ask, how do you feel emotionally about that trade? Because as long as I've known you, you've loved Patrick Laine, but I don't think you like the Ducks, if I can recall. So is that a deal that like pains you to predict?
Yes, it does. But
Okay,
the
I
idea of
figured. As soon
him,
as I saw it, I'm like, I don't know where that came from because he hates that team and
the
loves
idea,
that
I don't
player.
hate, I more so just hate I just hate the uniform. Hated them because they
Okay.
had Corey Perry for so long. Don't hate him as much now. Trevor Zegras is changing the league. Um, they're a playoff team. But if I'm Anaheim, I'm all over Patrick Laine if he becomes available. Um, Him and Trevor Zegras can complete absolute magic. I bet he'd put up multiple 50-goal seasons with Trevor Zegras. Bold prediction. Um, a surprise here. I think Jacob Chikrin is going to end up in Columbus. Columbus has
Okay.
interest. I think Arizona, from what it sounds like, I don't know how serious these are. Sounds like they want a top goalie. They're not going to get that from Florida with Spencer Knight. They're not going to get that from Boston with Jeremy
I was gonna
Swayman.
say, nope.
The Columbus Blue Jackets are interested in Chikrin, even though they're not going to make the playoffs this year. Um, and they get goalies they can move. I doubt it's Merzlikins at this point. I think Merzlikins is separating himself as the number one. Yunus Korpisalo or Daniil Tarasov, top goalie prospect for them, I think will be on the table in negotiations if they are to get close to a deal. And I think at this point it's going to be Korpisalo unless they want the younger guy. Um, Korpisalo, has had ups and downs in his career, but has proven, when he's at his best that he could be a good goalie. He's still pretty young. Um, the thing that would make this interesting too is that Columbus currently has their pick, and Chicago's both projected to be top 10. I think Arizona would want the higher of the two picks as a condition, but whether Columbus wants to do that remains to be seen. So I think it'll be the higher of those two first round picks, Yunus Korpisalo, top right wing prospect Kirill Marchenko, currently playing in Russia, and a 2023 fifth round pick as a sweetener. Um, I think at this point, in the past with the OEL and Connor Garland stuff, Armstrong has proven to be a stingy GM. If he wants to move Jacob Chikrin, he's going to have to come down from his lofty asking prices that are reportedly out there. He gave the Bruins a hard time when it came to trading for OEL and or Garland. He's going to have to come off his high horse and get a deal done if he truly doesn't want to waste Jacob Chikrin's prime and get a good return for him, as he said in the past. I have Riley Smith as part of the cap maneuvering for Jack Eichel being moved to the New York Rangers for a first round pick. I have Evgeny Dodanov's contract along with a third round pick to get New Jersey to take the contract going to the New Jersey Devils for prospect Nate Schnarr and a 2022 fourth round pick. Then I have Tomas Hertl staying in San Jose and signing long term, and Joe Pavelski sticking in Dallas as they try to make the playoffs. But these things for the Sharks and the Stars could change over the coming weeks depending on how they feel or where they are in the standings or both. So we'll see what happens with those. I'm not claiming to be this guru who's going to get all these right, but I figured I'd throw some actual trades together just for fun, just to get,
Hmm.
people thinking a little bit. And I'm not going to lie, if the Patrick Laine one happens, I'm going to be fired up because I feel like it's pretty bold.
Yeah, I would say so. Like I said, I mean, just the fact that you had him going to Anaheim was what caught me by surprise. Really quickly, you were doing that. I was scouring Twitter, and the NHL player safety page did put out Marchand's suspension at his 6 games. So that original report you had, or you read on here rather, was unfortunately correct.
Very tough. Very tough.
Hmm. I too, just to go back to the prediction stuff, I did not have as extensive as yours, clearly, with the three that I have. I did have one right, though. I'm going to take some credit here. I put this in before the Bruins game last night. I did, in fact, have Tuukka Rask not. This was going to be my one bold prediction out of the three kind of mini ones I made. Actually, two of these kind of factor into what happened last night now that I realize it. But the first one, I did not think Tuukka Rask was going to suit up for the Bruins for the rest of the season. The reports obviously came out the other day. I think it was the Cassidy comments that he said like Rask wasn't practicing for the week or that he was going to have to be reevaluated, whatever it was. So sitting there hearing that, I'm like, all right, well, maybe he takes some extended time off to fully get healthy, and then maybe it just decides that he's not going to play. Maybe he tries again next year. Didn't think he was going to flat out retire though. That one was a little surprising to me, but I guess kudos for being right. Obviously, you and I talked about it, that's unfortunate. Didn't want to be right, so maybe not a great prediction there. For trade ones, I had the two guys that have requested trades, DeBrusk and Stanishin, both going. And then maybe a surprising one to some. I have Studnicka. Maybe this is a one package for a player or two, or maybe separate deals, but you're seeing it right now. I alluded to it. I didn't obviously name off what the practice lines were, but Studnicka was not part of them. So I don't know if the Bruins are just kind of done with him or what the deal is here, if they don't want to give him any more opportunities. And if they're not going to do that, then in my opinion, move him for something that maybe you could use of actual value. So he goes to the deadline as well. And then kind of going off of your predictions, I didn't do numbers or anything for certain players, but thanks to Brad Marchand's stupidity from last night, just to, like I said, go off of your numbers, I have David Pastronok leading the team in points, not goals, but just obviously points entirely. So, like I said, very brief, very quick, definitely not as in depth as yours, but your thoughts on kind of the Stadika stuff? Like I said, I was talking to a buddy of mine at work the other night. He was kind of fed up that they're not really giving him, it seems like, any opportunities. I actually saw him on Twitter today talking about it when they, like I said, the practice lines came out. He's not a happy camper right now because he's a big Stadika guy. I know you are too. So, and he's surprised that they've kind of, I don't want to say shelved him or kind of buried him on like the depth chart type of stuff like that. But I was a little surprised that now with no Bergeron and no Marchand, he's not going to, it seems like, at least get a chance for the next game.
Yeah, I think the presence of guys like Nosek who can play center, Frederick's healthy again. You have Howley, you have Coyle. It's just the log jam. And
Mm-hmm.
on the wing, you got Pastrnak, Steen, Smith, Lazar. So that doesn't help him either if they were to move him to the wing. I think Jack Sneak is obviously, not obviously, definitely on the table in a package deal. I think he's been thrown around, in a lot of packages, like hypotheticals. Flora Shinzawa reported, I think, less than a week ago, that teams do have interest in Vakanainen and Studnicka. So I don't know how much value Studnicka has, but at least from an AHL sample size, um, he does put up good numbers in the AHL. but he's a guy I still think has some physical maturity to do it, even though the whole bulking storyline took over the summer. Um,
Hmm.
he's a little, I don't know. He's just the next step in his game is getting better in the corners, getting better at winning puck battles, getting stronger, and adding some scoring touch to the NHL level because he's not proven to be a good finisher. He has 1 goal in 27 games, 4 assists. If he was NHL ready, he'd be here. They would have made a spot
Hmm.
for him like they did with Oscar Steen. Um, yeah, I don't see Jackson Nika right now as a part of the long term future, and I think he could absolutely be traded um, into the right team. Could play in the NHL right away. So we'll see what happens with that. I think he's absolutely on the table in a trade package, 100%. But you also have in this outline, yeah, I mean the Bergeron stuff. If this lingers, that puts more pressure on you to add a center, as if there wasn't
Hmm.
enough. So um, that's really it. Back to my point, I didn't really talk about Luke Shen. Um, I think Luke Shen just like he's got 2 years left at 850K. Um, we know depth is so important. It's a good cheap option. Um, I'd rather have him in the lineup than Connor Clifton, to be honest. Not every
I
night, but
probably would
as
too, honestly.
as
Yeah.
another option. You don't know what's up with Vakanainen. Injuries can happen to anyone. COVID stuff can happen. Why not have a little more insurance? You can always send Vakanainen back down to the minors too if you want to. At this point, I think that would piss some people off. But if there's not a clear spot for him, maybe it just makes sense. Um, we'll see what happens with Vakanainen. I think Luke Shen could be acquired as well. Won't cost much for anything extra. Um, but other notes, Bergeron out for at least 1 game. Marchand out for 6. Carlo had a maintenance day, but should play tomorrow. Vakanainen skated on his own before practice. That's in progress. Um, and the last Bruins thing, speaking of centers, David Krejci to Stephen Wino of the AP News is not ruling out a return to the Bruins. So
He's pulling a Tom Brady.
this would simply
Never
be
say never.
massive because they get a center that they know is a proven commodity and don't have to give up assets.
When is
It's
the
a
deadline for
win-win.
him to make a decision, though? I thought it was. Is it? I
It's
feel like it
by
was
he
supposed to
has
come
to
up.
sign before the deadline.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
As I say, like I feel like
Um
we're getting closer and closer to that. Like,
yeah, he's currently set to play in the Olympics. He said, "Obviously if I had 1 more year left in my deal, I would be in the NHL now." Krejci told the Associated Press this week. It just kind of happened to work out that way. Things happen for a reason, I believe, so I'm here now. I'll try to make the most out of this opportunity, and what comes after this, we'll see. That's leaving the door open right there. And I think this goes back to the Hall and Pastronok thing, too. Don Sweeney and anyone else and talking to Krejci that's in the Zoom call says, hey, this is who you could play with. You're back in business. He would absolutely consider it and probably say yes. Like at this point, if he came out and said like, "Oh, I don't know, like I'll think about it, but I don't know, I kind of like being with my family. I kind of like just being back here
hmm.
and settling down a little bit outside of hockey, in my home, where I was born, where I grew up." But he's like, "We'll see what happens. You know, they want to give me some money and play with two stud wingers for the first time in
Hmm.
what is it, 9 years
Since what?
almost?
I was gonna say the
Like 9-ish
around what
years?
2011, 2012, around yeah
No,
then.
2013.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, what am I thinking? Yeah,
Um,
but
I don't
definitely
know,
interesting.
man. He's the he's the most ideal guy, I'll be honest. Like some people might say JT Miller, but if we can get Krejci back for free, we know what he is, we know what he's capable
That's
in the
the easiest
playoffs.
option.
You don't have to potentially give up a top prospect in a first round pick, Jake DeBrusk or whatever.
I'm
You're
curious
laughing.
though.
You're laughing if you get Krejci back for free.
The the one thing I'm curious is obviously you have the Rask haters. You also have the Krejci haters that aren't as bad as the Rask ones, but like I feel like those people would be like, all right, we just went through this with Rask. And though you say like gave up or quit on the season, so for lack of a better term, we'll go with that. But do you think people would be hesitant to bring Krejci back after what just happened with Rask?
No,
I
no.
mean, I don't see how you could be. Like, it's a definite. We've talked about it enough. It's a definite need. It's been a need since the start of the season. Like, This
Krejci's
would only be
also
a
not
positive
coming off
thing,
a
and
hip surgery, so
that's true. And
and
he's also been
he's
playing,
in
so it's
game
not like
shape.
he's like ice cold.
Yeah, he's in game
Yeah.
shape. Um, I need it. I need it badly. I need Krejci. I need Miller. I need Hurdle. Someone, please. The thought of improving the situation between Hall and Pastronok is way too tantalizing to not
Hmm.
upgrade. Nothing against Eric Holla. He's been fine, but Eric Holla was not brought in to be your second line center.
Not a second line center now.
Just simple. It's a simple fact. Um, but yeah, can't wait for my projected trades to all be correct as usual.
Hmm. Hmm.
I'm always correct in my predictions all the time.
Well, the
So
football predictions were solid throughout the postseason, so maybe
true.
that
That's
luck
maybe
and
an
skill
omen.
will trickle into the hockey trades as well.
Um, maybe they will, but this could be a bad week for the Bruins. Um, really bad week.
Yep.
Celtics though,
Could be a good week for
Celtics.
the Celtics.
The trade
It's been a
deadline
good last 2
tomorrow.
weeks for the Celtics.
It has been. The Celtics are kind of a wagon. I don't know if I'm using the W word yet,
Wouldn't go
but
there.
they're approaching potential wagon territory. But this is a team that's still going to have to fight their way into the playoffs. It's no sure thing. Um,
Hmm.
Definitely not. One of the top teams um, in the Eastern Conference right now, but they're playing like it. They're not in the standings, but they're playing like it.
I would say it's as open as it's maybe ever been. Brooklyn's
Yeah.
absolutely just decimated right now. There's talks that they might get rid of James Harden. Philadelphia is kind of up in the air. Will they get rid of Ben Simmons still? That's kind of been the overarching story about them all season. The only really two legit teams in the East, I feel like right now, is Miami and you could probably say Milwaukee. Like Chicago, I know has had a nice season, but I mean they've had some bumps and bruises of late. Like the Celtics are what 3 games out or 4 games out of the top spot, which is wild to think of where we were a couple months ago with this team. Like they could, with how well they've played, definitely short. I mean, they have shortened the gap and continue to shorten it very quickly. But I mean, they got to do something with the deadline tomorrow. I feel like this is one of the more interesting trade deadlines for the Celtics because we've kind of talked about it the last couple of weeks. So I've had private conversations about it. Like there's obviously, and you have in the outline that we'll get to. The talks of will they make moves to get under the luxury tax? Are they going to trade Dennis Schroeder, which I think is an all foregone conclusion. Like you have to move him to get something in here, and I think that's kind of going to go hand in hand. They'll trade him to get under the luxury tax while also add a piece and whatnot. But there's definitely a bunch of possibilities they can go with. I mean, you've heard Josh Richardson's name come up. I think that would be a mistake to trade him at this point, especially if you already moved Schroeder. Um, Grant Williams' name has come up. I know a couple years ago, if you and I probably heard Grant Williams come up in a trade, we would have said, sure, whatever it is, just do it. This year, looking at the stats, I didn't realize it until the other day. He's your best 3-point shooter. It's crazy to say. I probably wouldn't trade him at the deadline this year. I don't know if you feel differently. I would shop guys like Langford, Neesmith to see what you can get there. But I mean, there's plenty of possibilities. And I think the good thing, obviously, we've talked about it before, and we talked about it when he was named it. Like, it's going to be interesting to see what kind of direction Brad Stevens takes in his first, NBA trade deadline where he's actually kind of front and center to make the decisions instead of, obviously being the coach and having to adjust to what Danny Ainge does.
Yeah, I think Schroeder's almost close to 100% gone at some point.
Hmm.
When it comes down to Grant
It doesn't make
Williams,
any sense to
it's
keep him, like, all
yeah.
honesty. Like,
When it
he's a
comes
free
down to
agent
Grant
next year.
Williams, you have to think: do you sell high or do you hang on and hope it continues? Josh Richardson's playing well lately, so that's kind of a toss-up. Depends on how much
Hmm.
they like Malik Beasley. That's been one of the rumors, and if what they got to do to make that happen. When it comes to Neesmith, I think he's definitely a better sweetener than Langford. But
Hmm.
Neesmith, we talked about last week too. Like it depends on what the coach I think thinks they can get out of him.
Yeah.
Because I think Neesmith definitely does have some upside still, but it's kind of hard to put a pin on it. Langford, I don't really know with Langford to be honest. Like the
There's
thing that I
nothing
think
there.
has kind of gotten forgotten is we talked a couple weeks ago about like them exploring options for Al Horford, but it doesn't. I don't think they're trading Al Horford at this point. Um,
Yeah,
with
that
Schroeder,
was the
we
one
have the
for me
idea of the
too.
Bucks, the Bulls, and the Sixers. Um, what do you think about Horford though?
I mean, I saw there was a Bleacher Report article. I have it somewhere in the outline. There's just so much Celtic stuff that kind of talked about a potential Al Horford trade, and I think it was to the Kings, centered around Harrison Barnes, Alex Len for Al Horford, and a 2022 first round lottery protected pick from the Celtics. On paper, that's a deal I'd probably do because I mean I think Harrison Barnes, he's been a name that's kind of been linked to the Celtics for the last 2 or 3 years now. Money wise, moving Horford for him, you have to throw in Len because I think the Kings now have kind of cap problems after the moves they've made, or they want to maneuver the cap as well. So from a money standpoint, it makes sense. But from like what Al Horford from a veteran leader quality brings, I don't think he's a guy you move halfway through the season. Like I feel like that's a move that might backfire from like a locker room standpoint. It seems like everyone right now is playing as together as they've been, and I don't know if you can maybe like how much Al Horford has to do with that. We talked about it last week. I think it's more so on Marcus Smart kind of playing the way he's played and realizing finally that he's more of a facilitator and have nights like he had last night where you shoot the ball 13 times from deep, but you hit 6 of them and play well. Like right now, I think Horford's a guy you just kind of have to hold on to. Maybe you move him in the offseason and more of a package deal, something like that, to get out from under that contract. But right now, I think you stick with him. I would like Barnes, but I just don't think, like I said, the move of trading Horford, because he'd be the only guy you could trade money-wise. It's not like you could package Richardson and Schroeder and stuff like that. It wouldn't add up. And again, that wouldn't get the Celtics under the cap, which whatever they want to do. But yeah, I wouldn't really move Horford unless you're like really blown away, but they're not. No one's gonna come knocking at the door for Al Horford halfway through the season.
Yeah, it's kind of what it seems like at this point. I wonder if that Horford report a couple weeks ago was just kind of like exploratory, seeing what was out
Hmm.
there, see if there's anything worthwhile. Um, so yeah, additional things. The Celtics reportedly offered Schroeder for Dante DiVincenzo. The Bucks countered by asking for Grant Williams along with Schroeder. No thanks.
Yeah, I would do Schroeder straight up for DiVincenzo. If you have to throw a pick in there too, then who cares? Because I mean, nothing against Ime Udoka, but like he hasn't, and I'm fine with this because we talked about it a lot last year. Like guys like Romeo Langford and Aaron Nesmith, when they were struggling under Brad Stevens, it seemed like he was going to them a little too much. Um, Udoka, and one of the big things that's been kind of with the Celtics' success of late is he has shortened the bench tremendously to like Grant Williams, Schroeder, Richardson, and that's pretty much been it. You haven't seen a lot of Nesmith or Langford or guys like that. Even Peyton Pritchard, which was a little surprising to me, but Pritchard hasn't had as much success as he had last year. Um, I'm fine with them not playing a ton unless it's a blowout game like it was last night. So maybe if you have to throw one of those guys in as well, then go for it. Like draft picks, we talked enough about the Celtics hoarding draft picks, and obviously the struggle it's been to draft stud guys outside of guys like Tatum and Brown. They've struggled with that the last couple of years. So if you could do Schroeder for DiVincenzo, I know DiVincenzo's kind of been hurt this year. He's had a down season, but he would be a solid option off the bench to shoot, which is what the Celtics kind of seem like they want to go after. That makes sense to me. If it comes down to, and again, like I said, it's crazy to think of, Grant Williams would be a guy that holds up a trade. Um, but yeah, I still wouldn't move from him unless it's like a deal that's really going to blow you away. Again, like I said, with the Horford stuff. Um, but yeah, Schroeder for DiVincenzo, whether you need to add a pick or not, or if that's just straight up, that's a deal I would do. Because like I said, it gets you out from Schroeder, who's probably not going to be back here next year. Like he was kind of a stopgap guy. I think DiVincenzo's might be a free agent, but I think he's a guy that maybe you can get some control on, and maybe you can entice him to come back here. But that's a deal I would probably do.
Yeah, I don't like them asking for Grant Williams, and
Hmm.
I don't think Brad Stevens does either. Um, Other notes: Cavs still have interest in trading for Schroeder even after acquiring Karis LeVert, a guy I really like in the
Be a
NBA.
great deal for them.
Yeah, Josh Richardson for Malik Beasley is gaining steam again. Minnesota did turn down an offer of Richardson and Langford or Neesmith for Beasley earlier in the season. Don't know exactly when that was. The Lakers offered Taylor Horton Tucker and a future pick for Josh Richardson at one point. Um,
Nope. No, thank you.
like him. I looked at it and I didn't know who this guy was. People were like, oh my god, if the Lakers trade him for Josh Richardson, that's so dumb. I was like, wait, is this guy good? But I mean, he's all right, but like not a guy
He's
like
decent, but again, like I think they're more. And again, it's a guy like I looked it up. 3 more years of control after this. Just started a 3-year contract. He is younger than Richardson, but he's only shooting 25% from deep. Again, I think the Celtics really want to get a guy that can come off the bench and not score at will, but be a solid guy that they can kind of rely on, like Richardson. I mean, Richardson's had a really good season. Schroeder, same thing. To trade Richardson for Horton Tucker, I think is, I don't want to say a massive step down from Richardson, but it's a noticeable drop off. Like,
Mm,
so in that case, I would just keep Richardson. Unless maybe you can
yeah.
entice like a first round pick out of the Lakers, but again, it's going to be the Lakers. Like, it's not going to be a good first round pick. It's going to be later on. I know they've
Well,
had
it
a
might
down
be this year
season,
because
but
they kind of may.
true. I mean, but I still don't want to count on a team that has LeBron and AD. I still think that team's going to figure it out at some point late in the season, unless they
Mm,
just decide to just. I don't think they're going to blow it up at the deadline, but something's going to
yeah.
change
I
there.
mean, I've seen
Um,
people throwing out trading Westbrook, so
yeah, I've seen that a couple times. I don't know how well that would go over from just LeBron in general, but maybe it's a move they have to make. I mean, they've benched him the last couple games, late in games or in crunch time, so that doesn't seem to be working out there. But as Celtics fans, like, I'm not gonna really have any pity for the Lakers or for LeBron. Like, you made that bed, now you can sleep in it with all your old guys. We talked about it when it happened. Like, it was the retirement home in LA, and just it's kind of funny it hasn't worked out. But yeah, back on the trade. I mean, again, from a youth standpoint, a guy that doesn't make a lot of money like that, Horton Tucker would make sense from that standpoint. But again, it's not what the team needs right now, and going from Richardson to him just wouldn't be the best thing for them.
yeah, it just doesn't seem like one that really seems necessary could work out, but like not one you
No.
should have to rush to make. Keith Smith
Mhm.
of Spot Rack, Celtics blog and front office show says the Celtics don't feel the need that they need. Rather, a point guard, a return for Schroeder. Richardson can take over Schroeder's backup, on ball backup. I should backup twice because I wrote it in the outline twice. Um,
Oh yeah, look at that.
Point guard duties. The buyout market could have options if needed. Can you think? I don't know enough about the NBA to think of this. Are there any like popular potential buyout names out there?
Not off the top of my head, I really haven't seen anything, and I feel like when it comes to the NBA, that you kind of wait until after the deadline to see what guy. I mean, obviously, what guys get moved, and then who's going to be bought out from. If a guy's going from a contending team to a crap team, those are the type of ones that usually get bought out. But I haven't seen anything name wise on anybody particular that might get bought out. This comment to me though, I mean, I feel like it kind of screams that they're not going to trade Richardson more so that, I mean, again, obviously they're probably going to move on from Schroeder, and then like it says, they'll have Richardson take over the backup spot. So Richardson is staying. I think Schroeder's going, and then like we've seen with the Celtics in the past, they've had some success with guys in the buyout market. I mean, Greg Monroe was decent when they got him a couple years back, so that's kind of the way they might go, and then that's a cheaper option too. Like, they don't have to pay a guy a ton of money once he gets bought out. I think it might be the league minimum, maybe a little bit more. But I mean, that's a decision I won't have a problem with if they keep Richardson, trade Schroeder for a younger, maybe more controllable guy, and then try to dip into the buyout market, see what's there. If nothing's there, then kind of roll with the team you have. But with the way they're going right now, I think it's funny. Like I said it a couple months ago or a couple shows ago, like once the trade deadline comes, let's see where this team's at, what direction they're going, and then I think that's kind of how they'll figure it out. Will they sell? Will they buy? I think now they should at least be in full blown buy mode just to kind of show guys like Tatum and Brown that, hey, we're invested in this league, this year's team, and they think they have a chance. Like I said, the East is wide open right now, maybe minus two teams. Of course, you got to see what Brooklyn does if they can bounce back, or Philadelphia, stuff like that, but they should be buying, at least in my opinion. I know, like I
Yeah.
said, the talk has been get under the luxury tax, try to make moves like that. I think you can do both. You can trade Schroeder for an asset like a DiVincenzo. Maybe you go to another team. Maybe you try to go back to Chicago and see what you can get for him from there. But I think right now Milwaukee's probably the team that they're going to look to, unless somebody else comes up. I saw Marcus Smart's name come up again today. There was a report that Atlanta's kind of backtracked to try to see if Marcus Smart's available. Maybe that's a deal you look at again, but again, it seems like Marcus Smart has kind of figured out what his role is finally. I know we talked about that last week, and maybe he's not a guy you move on from at this point right now because he's played so well.
Yeah, I don't think that's in your best interest to move on from Smart right now. I'm going with Schroeder to the Cavs because I think the
Mm-hmm.
Cavs are just going to want to add their team that's might be overachieving or just surprising people, whatever you want to say. Um, I think a team that's pretty young, Schroeder can score off the bench a little bit. I think it'd be a good ad. Gives them plenty of options in terms of guys that can score based off who they have. Now they have Levert, and then if they add Schroeder. They had a good young core with Jared Allen, Evan Mobley, Darius Garland, Isaac Okoro. Why not add a good veteran that can score off the bench? I think it'd be smart.
Hmm.
And we know they have interest even after acquiring Levert. Why not double down and really strengthen your bench? Speaking of Karis Levert, he was acquired by those Cleveland Cavaliers, averaging 18.7 points per game, 4.4 assists, 3.8 rebounds, and a 2022 second round pick from Miami for Ricky Rubio, who's done for the season with an ACL tear, a 2022 lottery protected first round pick, a 2022 second round pick from Houston, and a 2027 second round pick from Utah. Hilarious. Um, Definite win for the
The NBA
Cavs.
for you.
Yeah, that's the NBA. I think we're both in agreement. I forgot they had Laurie Markkinen too. So
Hmm.
that's a
Yeah,
that's
he's
a
worked out
really
well for
fun
them.
team. If only I enjoyed watching the NBA and other teams outside of the Celtics. I would watch the shit out of the Cavs because that's a fun roster.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of mentioned the names, everybody that you rattled off. I mean, getting Rondo once they lost Rubio was good. Now that they get Levert, I mean, a guy that has been solid, kind of bounced around a little bit, but a great get for them. Like you mentioned, you pair him with Garland, Marketing, Mobley, Allen as their starting five, and then you have a depth of Rondo, Osman, Okoro, and Kevin Love is still there. People may have forgotten a little bit about him. I haven't, obviously, same with you. Haven't
I
watched a
forgot
ton of
about him.
Cavs games, but they've they've been the maybe the most surprising team of the NBA. I think that kind of goes without saying with how well they've played. Again, though, why I don't put them as like the two top teams like a Milwaukee and a Miami is there's kind of some uncertainty with the Cavs. Like they're a young team. Obviously, Kevin Love has had success in the playoffs. Rondo's had success, so maybe their veteran leadership comes through in the end. But it's still a team with some questions. So I mean, maybe like you said, maybe they get a Schroeder guy if type player like that, and maybe then they kind of go over the top a little bit. But great get for them. I mean, he's under control for 1 or 2 more years. So the Cavs are a team that look like they finally turned a corner and are going to be more of a prominent force in the East than they have been the last couple of years.
I just wish I predicted them as a playoff team. I had them finishing ninth, a little bit higher than you.
I think
I wish I
you and
just
I
went
both
in.
had them. Yeah.
You had them like 12th, I think.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't think the Cavs were going to be that good. I mean, they haven't been good
Yeah.
in what 4 or 5 years, and a lot of the
Damn it, I
predictions
should
I
have made
looked
them
at
a
had them
playoff
as a
team. Would have made me
yeah.
look like a beast. Um,
Hey, you would have been on fire with the predictions.
yeah. Um, the Kings, they acquired
This
Domas
trade makes
Sabonis
no sense to me.
as Woj had a stroke when he tweeted it. Domas Sabonis, Jeremy Lamb
And two
twice,
Jeremy Lambs. Yeah.
um, meaning Justin
Jeremy Lamb and
Holiday
his
is the
clone.
second, and a 2027 second round pick for stud Tyrese Halliburton, Buddy Hield, and Tristan Thompson. They also, being the Pacers, renounced the free agent rights of Jakar Sampson, creating a $10.5 million TPE for Jeremy Lamb in the trade. This is also per Keith Smith. This trade was nuts. Um,
Hmm.
in a bad, like weird way, but like it's
It
not
made
like
no
the
sense.
worst thing for the Kings, but the thing that sticks out is Halliburton. Like, why
That's what
would
I
you
mean.
trade
You
Halliburton?
that was my big takeaway is that Sabonis, the reason we have it in here, I mean, it doesn't, the Celtics weren't linked to any of these guys really. I mean, I know Heald's name came up a little bit. Sabonis was a guy they've been linked to in the past, but nothing this season. But obviously now with Sabonis being in the Kings, you're not going to be able to get him. I thought maybe Sabonis was a guy they could go after in the offseason. Now it's not going to be the case, but I'm with you. I mean, Heald, we talked a little bit about it throughout, a few shows back that he was a guy that all the reports seemed like he was going to get moved. I think Marvin Bagley's probably going to go too at some point. But yeah, Halliburton makes no sense to me. I mean, I feel like Heald, Thompson, and maybe some picks could have been enough for Sabonis. Maybe you shorten that deal a little bit, but giving up on Halliburton after 2 years, I mean, he's been solid since his rookie season. Like, trading him away already. The Pacers, good on them for obviously Sabonis is a tough loss, but now Miles Turner can kind of take over as that starting center role and not have to play so much of the four. And he's probably more comfortable in that center role. And now pairing him with Halliburton, they're putting together a decent young team there. Like that's not a deal that looks all that bad for the Pacers. And I'm not saying getting off of Sabonis like he was a bad player for them or anything, but like that's a deal that if you're a Pacers fan, that you should be able to swallow and maybe even be excited about. I don't know, maybe there's some Sabonis fans, probably a lot of Sabonis fans, but getting Halliburton and Heald back is a huge get for them. Tristan Thompson's just kind of a throw in to make money work, I feel like.
Yeah,
But other than that, like
And I mean,
Like
like,
that's a great get for the Pacers.
I feel like if the Kings keep Halliburton, they get Halliburton, Sabonis, De'Aaron Fox, Marvin Bagley, and whoever the hell else, Lamb or Holiday, who knows, someone else they already have.
Mhm.
That's like a pretty good starting five, isn't it?
I would say so. Like all the reports too that you heard was they were gonna try to move Heel that wasn't working out there. They were gonna try to move, like I said, Bagley, and then now seeing Halliburton's name pop up, it's like, all right, well, what are you actually doing in Sacramento? Like, are you trying to build a contender here, or are you just trying to just move guys around and you're playing, 2K mode and GM stuff and franchise mode and 2K, like just making all these crazy deals that kind of are head scratchers to say the least.
Yeah, you think a 20-36 team will want to keep their stud first rounder in Tyrese
You'd
Halliburton
think guy you
for
could
the
maybe build
future to
around.
build
I
around.
mean, Sabonis isn't the oldest guy on the planet, so I mean he's maybe a guy you could pair with some others, but like again, it's a deal that doesn't really make a ton of sense to me.
Yeah, well, definitely a strange move. Definitely the strangest one so far. This one
Mhm.
happened a little while ago.
The Pelicans trade from the other day might be the one that takes the cake. I know we'll get to that in a second, but that one didn't make a ton of sense to me either.
Yeah, true. Um, this one happened a little while ago now. Clippers acquired Norman Powell and Robert Covington from the Portland Trailblazers for Eric Bledsoe, Justice Winslow, Keon Johnson, and a 2025 second round pick. How do we feel about this one?
It stinks from a standpoint that the only reason I had this in here too is because Powell had been linked to the Celtics. Robert Covington's a guy I've been high on the last couple of seasons. I've before talked about him as like a bigger version of Marcus Smart. He's a guy that has his nights offensively, but is more so defensive minded. Brings that veteran leadership. But Powell was the big one for me, a guy that I thought could have worked well with the Celtics. I think he ended up dropping like 30 points in his Clippers debut the night they got him. So that's a tough loss there. Blazers, it appears like they are. I mean, without the Damian Lillard being there, he's I think done for the season. He's out right now with an injury. They look like they're gonna or have been selling off pieces, so not the craziest of deals for them. They get a decent young piece back in Winslow and Johnson, but Bledsoe again kind of a throw-in piece for money wise. And then the first round, the second round pick they get back too. Obviously they can help, but yeah, that one was kind of a stinger from the aspect of maybe the Celtics could have made a deal for Powell. I think maybe Schroeder or Richardson, a guy like that, could have been offered for him, but in the end, he ends up going to the
Bitch.
Clippers, which will sting there, but not much you can do about it now.
Yeah, that's one I really don't have much of an opinion on, to be honest. Um,
Mm.
this the other weird one. CJ McCollum, Larry Nance Jr., and Tony Snell to the New Orleans Pelicans for Josh Hart, Thomas Sadaransky, Nikhil. Is it Nikhil?
I believe so. Nikhil Walker-Alexander.
Nikhil Walker Alexander and Didi Lozada for a 2022 unprotected first round pick and two future second round picks. Bobby Marks almost perfectly predicted this trade. He had, I don't know when the article is from, it's just a screenshot. Trade we would like to see on ESPN.com: McCollum, Tony Snell, and Cody Zeller to New Orleans for Josh Hart, Jackson Hayes, Tomas Sadaransky, and a 2021 from Milwaukee. Interesting note here as well: the Trailers owe Chicago a first round pick that is top 14 protected from 2002 to 2028. Because the pick has 7 years of protection, they're not allowed to trade a first unless the protection is lifted. So just an interesting
Huh.
caveat there. Um, what was so weird about this one for you?
Just the fact, I mean, I don't want to say they just sold off McCollum for nothing because I mean they made the Blazers they made another deal earlier today with Sadaransky and Walker Alexander being involved. I think it actually happened right before we recorded, or maybe an hour or two beforehand. But just kind of to go off that too, to just kind of get the full aspect of what they're getting back. This was from Woj. It was a 3-team deal between Utah, San Antonio, and Portland. Utah ends up getting Alexander Walker and Juancho Hernan-Gomez, who of course had a short stint with the Celtics, was traded earlier in the year. The Spurs get Sadaransky and a second-round pick from Utah, and the Blazers get Joe Ingles, who's out for the season. I believe he has an ACL injury as well. A decent young piece in Elijah Hughes, and then another second-round pick from Utah as well. So they kind of add to the draft stock as well. But to me, like CJ McCollum is a pretty damn good player in the NBA. Obviously, had some success with Portland going to the playoffs with Damian Lillard, kind of one of the best backcourts in the NBA the last couple of seasons. To get Josh Hart and a couple of picks here and there back for him. Like Josh Hart is a decent piece. They end up moving Satoransky. They don't keep Walker Alexander. They get Lozada, who I know nothing about. He's played 5 career NBA games, so maybe he blossoms into something decent. And then again, they get picks. If I was a Celtics, I think it was Keith Smith that tweeted it out too, that if I were the 29 other NBA teams, I'd be calling up the Trailblazers to see what pieces you could put together to try to get Damian Lillard. Because I mean, this is a deal to me that like doesn't bring back the type of pieces that CJ McCollum should bring back. Like I thought he would have gotten at least a couple more picks, at least one more first round. I think Keith Smith had that as well. He was surprised that they only got back one first round pick for him. Woj, apparently the Trailblazers are going to try to build around Lillard and make some moves after these moves to try to help Lillard out, saying, quote, Portland's plan is to fully reshape roster around Damian Lillard now. Portland created a $21 million trade exception today, potentially $60 million in cap space in this summer. Multiple draft picks and assets via Pelicans and Clippers trades. Plan is to pursue high-end talent now, not retreat. Like I said, though, if I'm the Celtics, like I'm calling up Portland and, what's the best crappiest piece we can put together of maybe a couple of picks and a couple of young guys that might not pan out. Because this, like I said, this trade to me, Twitter blew up after it because even the same thing, people were like, well, this is not even close to what you should be getting for CJ McCollum. I saw some people too that were like, oh, they gave up Larry Nance too. Larry Nance is a decent piece, but he's nothing crazy. Like I said, to get basically just Josh Hart back and picks like this, I feel like I just keep harping on it. I keep kind of beating the same dead horse. Like it's a deal that should have probably got back more for the Blazers.
Yeah, and like Damian Lillard is committed to the Trailblazers too.
If I was
Which
him, I
like
wouldn't be after this. Like he was pretty close with
he
McCollum. I
said
would
it
be like, all
after
right, I
this.
want out.
He said
Did
it
he really? I
after
didn't even
this.
see that.
I don't get it, man. Like as you can see me throw my socks away.
That's nice. I'm sure people appreciated that.
Yeah, my feet are itchy. I don't know why.
Okay.
Yeah, weird. I know. Excuse me. Yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens tomorrow, but a couple
hmm
interesting trades not involving the Celtics yet. Um, but I'm sure that will change. I think, as we've talked about, Schroeder is almost definitely gone,
I think
but
so. It
this is a guy
makes
we
it
kind of
doesn't make any sense to
expected to be
keep
a
him other than.
stopgap. So,
Like he is. I feel like I don't want to say your most what's the word I'm looking for? Not like tradable asset because he is tradable, but most like enticing, I guess. Like you most realistic enticing trade piece because obviously we mentioned it earlier. They don't seem like they want to trade Grant Williams. I don't think they're going to trade Marcus Smart now that he's turned a corner. It seems like we talked about. How much trade value does Langford have? How much trade value does a guy like Neesmith have? Do you maybe want to move on from Peyton Pritchard? I feel like he's a guy you should probably keep at least for one more season to see what he is. Like Schroeder's a guy that makes too much sense to not move. Like he's making the most money I feel like out of the guys you have to like be able to move. So it's a deal that makes sense to me. He can get you something back. One of the report I did see today too earlier is apparently I don't know if it's how true it was or not because I can't remember the source that I saw it from. But apparently rival NBA teams are like happier to deal with Brad Stevens than they were with Danny Ainge, which I guess isn't maybe the most surprising thing on the planet because we know how much of a stickler Danny Ainge was when it came to making deals and asking for too much over the years. I just found that kind of funny. So maybe there's some hope going into tomorrow that the Celtics actually do get a deal done. Um, I think they kind of have to make a move. I honestly, I know we've talked about it in the past and we've crapped on them for, going to the trade deadline, saying they need to do something and then just kind of staying pat and doing nothing. I feel like this year with how well they've played the last couple games, like that wouldn't be the worst thing. Like if they don't move Dennis Schroeder, I'm not going to hate it. Like I said, it'd be nice to maybe get something back for a guy that's probably going to walk in the offseason. But if they keep this team together, if they can continue to play as well as they have, especially defensively, then I don't really have a problem with it. Again, I think it comes back to, showing the team that they're invested or the upper management and Brad Stevens is invested in it and getting a guy that can help you down the stretch is what's going to end up working out for him.
boy, I'm starting to yawn. I'm getting sleepy. Yeah, and I feel like we always like mention this, but like as we talked about in a past episode, we say this a lot. This is a big deadline for Brad Stevens. It's his first deadline as
Absolutely
the
is.
man in charge. This is one people are going to remember. Um, Maybe if the pressure's on more, in future deadlines when there's like more, bigger names to be traded potentially or bigger names to go after, those will stick out more. But this is the first one. This is the first trial run for Brad Stevens, and luckily for him, there's not a ton of pressure. So
Doesn't seem like, yeah, it's, I mean, we've talked about it a lot. It seems like they're kind of, I don't want to say they're not playing for this year, but like next year is the big one. It seems like again, with all the reports that they want to move on to the salary cap or the luxury tax, rather, stuff like that. Like it seems like they're kind of already have their eyes set on next season, which I mean, we've talked about it. There was a show, I don't know how many shows back, where we named the 20 or so massive free agents that could hit the market. Like, seems like that's what their eyes on. But again, if you can help this team out this year and not give up too much to do so, then I would not be opposed to making a move that helps you.
yeah, Bradley Beal's out for the season with wrist surgery, I think it was. So he'll have
Yep.
plenty of time to rest up to make his Celtics debut next
Sign with the
season.
Celtics, yeah.
Yep. So that's gonna be sick. Trade
Did
deadline
see Greg
tomorrow.
Hill
We'll see what
today.
happens.
Yep, I was just gonna say the last thing I remember earlier today, seeing that the Greg Hill show said, I think it was him on his show saying that the Celtics should go all in for once again bringing up the name of James Harden. Which again, if you're anyone that believes that, if you're listening, sorry in advance, but you're an idiot, because again, you're seeing that James Harden is not shooting his way out like he did in Houston, but again, doesn't want to be where he is. He wants to play in Philadelphia. He wants to play with Joel Embiid. I think that's on record, or at least has been reported on. So again, if the Celtics were to make a stupid trade and get him here, he's probably going to want out in a month or two. Won't stay the season. He's a free agent next year. He can opt out. He'll go to free agency and go sign with Philadelphia. So if he goes there, then all the power to him. But again, just I found that funny that again we're still harping on, oh, the Celtics should make a move and go trade for James Harden, a guy that doesn't want to be anywhere where he is. It seems like so.
Yeah, the
Don't do
report
that. If
said
Brad
he's like
Stevens
literally
is,
screaming his way out. Like,
yep, he's like preaching to the heavens or like screaming. I saw that report too, like screaming at the top of his lungs or whatever to people, anyone that'll listen to get him out of Brooklyn. Which
like
good
the
luck
only
to
thing,
KD.
the only thing that makes sense is the douchebag for douchebag trade of
Yep.
James Harden for Ben Simmons and some other
Oh, in
pieces
that
or
case,
whatever.
here, then Philadelphia would be acquiring Kyrie Irving as well. But
Well, yeah, but no. Um,
the first ever 2-for-1 D-bag trade in NBA history.
it's a giant turd versus a douche sandwich or a
Yep.
wrong. I just said that wrong.
No, you said it backwards. Yep.
Yeah, I said it backwards. I'm tired. If you can tell by me laughing
Mm-hmm.
or yawning. Wow, I can't even speak English
Oof.
anymore.
Cut it. We're done.
I woke up early today so I could watch the Boba Fett finale before work. So I'm blaming it
Kind
on
of
that.
underwhelming.
Yeah, it was underwhelming. But there were some cool moments we're not going to talk about in case
True.
anybody hasn't seen it.
No spoilers on the show.
No spoilers on the show. Thank you for listening to this new platform. Kyrie plus Harden trade. Philly will have to trade half of its team to match salary.
That
Well,
is a good
yeah,
point.
that was just a joke, though. We're just
Yep.
talking about douchebags being traded. But some other news. We're talking about news last week and into this show. In the coming weeks, we will have the podcast available on iHeartRadio and Amazon. So keep an eye out for that. Usually takes a week or two though for them to get that all set up on their end. So keep an eye out for that. We will no longer be on Anchor as we are being distributed through Megaphone. So you can listen on Megaphone now instead of Anchor. The Full Press Coverage app, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, a bunch of different platforms as well. You can check on our site. But you can follow us on Twitter as well. You can follow us on TikTok. If you can throw Salvaggio and Cratty into the search bar, you should be able to find us. Our Twitter, me at Mike_Cratty, Ryan at Ryan_Salvaggio. Can you tell I'm tired? At
The
Sal and
question I
Cratty
have for
Pod.
TikTok, really quick, is do I make like it's gonna be probably 5-second TikTok of you and I both, like I've done for the football predictions and the playoff predictions so far? Do I make a 5-second TikTok saying, oh, we both picked the Bengals to win the Super Bowl, or do I just say, hey, go listen to from here to
No,
here?
I don't know if
I didn't
that's
think
the
so.
play.
Probably not the best move, yeah.
People are weird on TikTok, man. Every time I post a video, we lose like a follower or two. Like, what the hell? Like, you don't like
Makes no
me?
sense.
Like, what the
Nope.
hell? Come
You've made
on.
a lot of enemies the last
I'm a
couple
I'm a nice guy.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a nice guy. What the fuck, man?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, do all that stuff. If you're new, thank you for listening. Please follow Full Press Coverage on Twitch, Full Press Coverage on YouTube. Um, Twitch channel's
Follow
pretty
everything.
new. YouTube, I don't know when they started the YouTube, but follow us there. You can listen. All your comments will be filtered into the restream here. That's the site we're using for the live stream. So yeah, whether you listen um, on Spotify or something, or you watch it on video and don't listen, whatever you choose to do, thank you for listening to episode 81, the Randy Moss episode. The Anton Bleed episode, of course, as well. Can't go without mentioning the legend. Um, but yeah, episode 82 next Wednesday. Have Super Bowl stuff to talk about. Hopefully, positive stuff for the Bruins, and we'll see what the Celtics do and anything else that comes along the table. We will talk to you next week. Thanks for listening. Stay safe, stay healthy, be nice to people, and we'll talk to you then.